you make stuff for friends and family, don't you? And then they go, what do you think? Oh, yeah, it's brilliant. It's lovely. But there's a little voice in the back of your head. So, they have to say that. That's it. What you get, but then,
just biased.
Exactly. You start putting posts out, and then these strangers are like, oh, I like that. They ask you questions, and you think, okay, that's cool. Validation. We all, at the end of the day, we're all children. We want validation for what we do, don't we? And then, and then
or Tango Ice Blast.
She can't hear you. I'm just going to poke her head in a bit, frowning. The validation of others, and then that becomes a social aspect. Because you're like, okay, so you like my shit. Well, I'm going to have a look at what you do. Dude, what you do is awesome. But you actually think my stuff's good, and you ask me how to do it? Okay, cool. Right. And then you sort of become friends from there. But it wasn't until the first Maker Central, I missed it out in 2018 because I was just, had my head down, making stuff, wasn't on social media at all. Then 2019, I met Johnny and the boys, and then obviously we set up our collective, and it's all blown up from there. That's the part of it that I think is awesome. Total strange. You sit down with anybody looking from the outside would think you guys have known each other for 10, 15 years, where you just get on. That was what we used to get from the meets. You'd have all these different people from different walks of life. You've got Rob Hardy. He's like, so big up in the NHS. Quite well spoken, makes beautiful chairs, and classically just thrown money at it, and he loves to do it. And then you got a guy called John, who's just a typical plumber. I'm not going to cast aspersions on plumbers, but you know what I mean. Totally different walks of life. Yeah, did it. Which in normal day-to-day activities would probably have zero interaction with each other ever. But this sort of common thread of whether it be woodwork or textiles, metal, whatever, that spark of creativity, it joins people and brings people together. What do you do? Oh, I make trees out of buttons and copper wire. How the hell do you do that? What do you do? I make cutting boards. Oh, I've always wanted to make one of those. So, and then just gets everybody talking. The biggest thing that I loved about our meets in the infancy of it was taking a step back after you'd introduced everybody and fed everybody and kind of talked about what we're going to do on the day. You just hear the hubbub, like the background noise. And you can, like, you feel the happiness in the air. Does that make sense? And you look around, everybody's smiling, everybody's laughing, and you can't help but just a big ass grin on your face because I didn't create this, but it just gave people facility to come together. And to be honest, I think people started looking forward to it, and I think some people maybe even need it, especially as men. As you get older, you throw yourself into the job or family. You don't actually make time just to do stuff with your friends, and that's what meets were. That's why we did them the last Saturday of the month, so everybody had something to look forward to at the end of the month. And from a commercial aspect, people generally got paid, so they could buy some wood in Tim's timber yard. That was sort of provided. Tim gave us about 500 square foot to host the meets, which was awesome. And then he provided the wood for the 3 Easy Pieces challenge as well.
Nice. For the benefit of listeners, and perhaps listeners over the pond who may not be quite so aware, and people on Europe, I think I'm going to have to break tradition and almost do a bit of an introduction, aren't I? I think
it's about.
I think it could be useful here. Yeah, well, I know it's kind of I'm kind of feeling a bit itchy about doing it, but I think we ought to.
Go on, in trouble. Who are you?
Oh yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
Who am I? What do I do? I'm Paul. I'm from Cunningham's Custom Creations and the sort of co-founder of Essex Makers. Now, it's called Essex Makers just because that's where we thought of it and that's where we launched it. And it was born from the first Maker Central I attended in 2019, just a way to bring people together in real life, to stand around, talk about our workshops, talk about tools, talk about what we do, and just share knowledge with each other, which really is the basic crux of it. And the only really condition that we had was when you walk in the door, everybody's equal. You chip on your shoulder, it stays out the door, or you see your ass out. It's just everybody's an equal there, and everybody did treat everybody as an equal. We didn't actually have anybody untoward turn up. Everybody was excited to see people. So that's Essex Makers. I suppose I best go back to myself. I'm waffling. See what I did there?
I mean, you're in the right place for it.
Exactly. I'll ask you a question about the logo later. So I've got a workshop here out in Essex. I've moved workshops from my garage and suddenly got into bigger and bigger places. I think I found my forever shop.
You've had a fantastic progression of workshops, really. Because when I first came across you, you were working out of shipping container.
That was after the garage at home, which were pretty much the same size. Had a neighbour make some complaints, which in hindsight I think it boiled down to jealousy, nothing more. But there's problems with the council, and it was just easier to go. But you know what? They did me the biggest favour in the world. I have no idea who it was. I wish I knew who it was, because I'd give them a huge ass hug and probably snot the shit out of them, because that pushed me on to the shipping container, and then from there to the other two workshops. But yeah, we're in a shipping container in Tottenham, which is probably an hour and a half drive away from the house. I had nowhere to put all my stuff because the council said that I was being antisocial between the hours of 8 and 6. Figure that one out. Anyway, we bought the shipping container and dumped it on back of a warehouse that my friend had down in Tottenham, and I worked out of there for a year. And quite amazing how disciplined you can be in a very, very small shop, because we are goldfish, aren't we? We kind of grow to the size of our bowl. That bowl was only 160 square foot, and it had a lid on it. I affectionately refer to it as my tiny tin can. And I look back in hindsight, the amount of work that I actually did out of there, and I thought, how the hell how did I do it? Could I go back to something that small? Yeah, under a massive amount of duress, probably. But we're adaptable, aren't we? Think back to, when you moved house and what you did with the kids, and you bring everything in and out. You think back, how the hell did we do it? But you do it in the moment, don't you? We're adaptable. We were there for a year. I tried to make everything as lean as possible and as dual and triple purpose as possible, because the biggest pain in the ass is when you're done with one process, you've got to pack that tool away to clear that worktop to put something else on. Yeah. And I just done that, and then the owner of the warehouse decided that he was selling up, and we had a month to get out. So a friend, Gooch, and I, we found the place out in stock, which is a lot closer to home. And to begin with, it was okay, but what we did was so vastly different. He did body work and wanted to spray cars, and I'm on the other side just creating a bunch of dust. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And during COVID, when the whole country ground to a halt, I just thought, right, am I going to do like 90% of everybody else? Stay home and get paid and do nothing? No, let's see what I can do with this opportunity that the entire society is probably going to get once in a lifetime. And took the bigger shop. Fortunately, it was the same landlord that had the smaller shop. And we moved in the end of August and have been slowly building it since then. It was an empty box when we moved in. And fortunately, a lot of contacts in the day job. I leaned real heavily on all of them, just try and get the best value. And what I thought, you got to put mezzanine in first. It essentially doubles the space. And that was it. That was what took so long to actually get it up and running, was waiting for the steel and the steel workers
I remember
used. Once that was up, we flew. And again, the local lads came down and gave us a hand. The day I got the keys, I'd done my back in, and I wanted to help. And I was sitting there and I was feeling so guilty. And they're telling me to sit down. I was like, I'm a man, I want to work, I can't, this is my shop, not yours. I want to help. Let's pick up a sheet of plywood and sit down, you'll be all right. And it blew me away. It worked I think on the Friday, a 15-hour day. Didn't help because Travis Perkins waited till 5 o'clock to deliver our materials. Went and got everybody food.
In the hours.
That I could do. I could do that. I could drive and go get a bunch of pizza. And then I went to shake everybody's hand, tell them thank you. And they said, no, we're not done. We're going to carry on. We left at 9 o'clock on the first night. And then back again on the Saturday as well.
You spent more in pizza than you did in materials.
Yeah, I think it's about 150 quid at Domino's, but I want to make sure everybody's well fed. Went home with full stomach and a couple of cases of beer. It's a currency unit, isn't it? Like a cup of tea or a bacon roll. So I guess that's kind of what's got me to where I am now. It's a juggle with a day job and a workshop. Generally, Monday through Friday is grinding the wheel. If I can get a few hours in the evening or a cheeky afternoon, it's fine. But what I'm trying to do is consolidate both work streams into a single place, because so much of what I do now is online, which actually COVID was a blessing for that. You don't have to work in the office all the time. I can work remote and I can still get my projects delivered. And right, it's my lunch break. Right, I'll go machine something for an hour.
Yeah.
Sunday time. I found so many things we do in life. They're always a variable, aren't they? You can always find efficiency gains in there, or find a better way to do something, or a cheaper way to do something. With one sort of immutable thing is time, isn't it? That's fixed. You can't change that. So the more you can pack into that fixed unit, the more sort of, I don't know, financial value or efficiency you can pack into that, then it's a better use of your time. And that's what I'm trying to achieve with workshops. I can run a day job pretty much from there, except for when I've got to go onto site. And this year has just been unprecedented. I'm up and down half the country most of the time now. So Saturday is my only full day in the shop. Sundays I spend with my boys, spend with Alfie. Then I'm allowed to do what I want on Saturday. So it's me. I say we because I think a very important part of this, which not a lot of people focus on, is the wife.
Yeah.
Supporting, running the house, doing everything in the background to enable us to play and get paid, which is the nicest way of looking at it. Eventually, I want to be in the shop full time. Don't get me wrong, I do like my job. It has its own unique set of challenges, but I don't want to be doing that when I'm 50, and I don't have long left. And as actually Anna said to me, she says, just think of it, you're doing what you need to do now so you can do what you want to do later. And that's a really, really nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
And you know, you're not running away from your job, you're running towards your future. And it's like, yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. And it kind of helps galvanize the vision. So with Essex Makers, what we want to do with it is we want to do our monthly meets, get everybody together. But generally on Saturdays, for local guys, I've got an open door policy in my shop. Anybody can come down, hang out. Best bring me a coffee. I'm going through the front door. But if somebody's got something that they want machining, I know I'm fortunate enough to have the space and have the machinery to do it. And it's a social bit of it. It's quite fun. I spend a lot of time in the shop by myself, as do you guys and probably everybody listening.
Most people do.
Having another person in the shop with you kind of ups your productivity as well. And it
does, yeah.
It's just nice. It's just nice to have somebody to bounce off. So the Saturdays it is pretty much an open door, but I want to do it a bit more formally, to have an actual meeting area for everybody to hang out. We had a barbecue last year when most of the restrictions were lifted. It was more a thank you to everybody that helped me in the beginning when I was, for lack of a better word, an invalid and couldn't do anything, and all the support they gave me to get the shop built up and running. And it was a fantastic day. I had about 30 people there, but it didn't feel like it. And everybody got along. It was more about the food than anything else. But kids went upstairs and had a play. Everybody sat around the table, just jabbering away until about 9:30 at night. And the funny thing was, everybody's leaving. Yeah, take a plate, take this home. Yeah, go on, take the food. Oh, I can't eat it all. I can try, but I can't. Then Sophie and I finally finally left about 11:30. After I finished the washing up. Yeah, that's a really strange sentence, isn't it? I was doing the washing up in my workshop. Got home 11:30. Anna, where's the food? Oh, I didn't bring any home. What didn't you take? No, you gave it away to everybody. I sat there at 11:30, eating a crusty ham and cheese sandwich. Yeah. And then to top it off, I spoke to Dom on the Tuesday, and he goes, "Oh, you know that food that you gave us?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Still in the boot." I said, "You dickhead." Mate, why didn't you lie to me? You wouldn't have upset me. You should have lied to me and told me it was goddamn delicious and you figured out how to lick your elbow. No, you told me you left it in the boot and I was eating ham and cheese scraps at 11:30 on a Saturday night. I want to kind of
invited him back.
Hey?
You've invited him back.
Oh, Dom's always welcome. He's Dom's a bad man. Dom just lives on Facebook Marketplace, and then he'll find some awesome deal, and he'll just send it to me, and he'll just count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because like a fucking magpie, I can't help myself. Oh, there's a new shiny thing.
Oh,
now,
I know.
If I was to buy it, that would cost me. Ooh, but if I get it now, it's only going to cost me that. Darling, I'm gonna buy it. It's a good price. I'm gonna sell it on. I'm gonna move it on. Me not, are you? No.
By the time you've said yes to buying it, you've already figured out what you're going to make with it, how much you're going to sell them for, and how quickly it's going to pay off the thing that you bought.
Yeah.
So
generally,
you never get a chance to try and flip it. Because your brain's already worked out how you're going to turn it into something else, and where you're going to put it in the workshop, and what else you're going to shift out to get it in there.
Well, yeah, I am a little bit running out of space downstairs. Kind of running out of space downstairs.
It's because you keep buying massive machines.
Yeah, I'm getting rid of a couple actually. I haven't put them up for sale yet. My big sander's going. It doesn't get used enough to. Yeah, the big fucker, the one that Sparks put on the board, they just called it Big Bastard. That's what it shows on the distribution board. It says Big Bastard on it. It's not getting
put all the other smaller tools through it.
So I did debate that with the Aldi bandsaw, but I ended up just giving that away. So I had this idea in my head of feeding it to the big, to its big felder brother and cutting it in half, but. It would have been fun actually to upset some people.
I think I suggested that to you with the sanders as well, is to put the smaller sander through the Big Bastard. You
did. But somebody else got a use out of it, so fair enough. The deals he finds, they're mind blowing. You know all about it, Jamie, on the group, and. Andy, I get a lot of hate for it. Jamie, you were joking.
Rightfully
do you remember when Johnny bought the little Proxon mill?
Yeah.
Hey, watch. He's going to go find one in the skip somewhere for 50 quid. Actually, it cost me 70 quid, but that was Dom that found that. He found me a Tormek with about 20 jigs on it. The guy wanted £95 for it.
What?
Yeah. You still beating down to 70?
No, I and made me think that he had one over me. I was ready to bite his hand off, but my poker face game was strong that day. Strong. 95 quid. It's an old super grind, but this is what Dom does. So if you left the food in the boot, yeah, okay. What you found this week? He's found me a Levi's for 50 quid. Big fucker, like about 3 foot high. It's silly, I'm going to go pick it up. So, yeah, back to what I was saying about the meat. I want to kind of recapture that magic of getting everybody together. This year at Makers Central, it was all about the people. I don't think I actually bought anything. I just bought food for me and Sophie and alcohol for everybody else. But seeing everybody, end of every night, my jaw hurt because I've been smiling all day and laughing all day and running away from somebody that was trying to use me as a billboard. I think I had one on my
were
head for about 2 hours. I didn't even realise. What's that?
You were a fantastic walking billboard.
It took about 2 hours to actually twig. I think it was Idris said, "Look at your back." So I actually, I thought he's just being friendly, giving me a pat on the back because he's a swell guy. No, there's a sticker, there's a sticker, there's a sticker. I had one on the top of my head for half an hour, and I didn't know. I didn't know. And Friday night when we all went out for a meal, that was awesome. As soon as I walked into the Premier Inn, you almost knocked me off my feet, Jamie. Yeah.
There's so much excitement. Seeing people walking through the door and
Now, obviously, none of us have seen each other really for about 3 years, so I think it might have been slightly exaggerated. But if Maker Central goes ahead next year, I have no doubt it will be exactly the same. The camaraderie and I don't know, almost like that. It's my family, it's my kin, these are my people. That sort of thing. It was awesome.
That's it, isn't it?
Yes.
We found our people.
We have found our people. And also what blew me away, obviously I brought Sophie along with me. You guys just welcomed her in with arms like this. And she became part of the crew. It was lovely. She had a
Soph's already been part of the crew anyway. But she absolutely solidified her position there when I put the first sticker on and it started to peel off. And she kept on just patting it back on for me until I got back around to see you again.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole weekend was great. Didn't want to end. And it's weird. I'm still kind of feeling a bit of it's going to sound cheesy as fuck, but like kind of the afterglow from it. I'm still buzzing from it. And that 100% galvanized my resolve. Let's get Essex Makers back, because there really isn't anywhere in the calendar that we actually get to meet up, unless it's for a specific like workshop that somebody's doing, like a lathe class or a mallet class, or a stuffed bear exhibition or something like that. All different makers. Doesn't matter what you do. You make stuff, you're creative, or you just want to come out, you want to hang out, you want to learn, come on down. Why not? So I have got some plans, and really, I think we're going to be in a position to launch our first meet at the end of June. It was the last Saturday of the month, which I believe is the 25th. Now, I can't have an avalanche of people come down because my landlord, the farmer, would go mental. I can fit probably 50 people there, which I think would be a decent sized establishment. And we already figured that out with 30 people at the barbecue. And upstairs was not developed. Upstairs looked like the Lebanon. It was shite everywhere. Now that we've got the space, we could easily fit 50 people. It's just how I've got to monitor that and what I'm thinking. And I might like your guys' input on this, is to almost make it like a ticketed event. What I want to do is I kind of want to do 3, take advantage of the summer months. Oh, fuck, it doesn't rain on the days, but if it does, we've got a great big 18 square meter gazebo that people can go in. They can sit upstairs as well, because we're still going to barbecue, because that's what it's all about. We can all stand there.
Yep.
Tell you, turn it over, turn it over, turn it over. Yeah, right, lovely. I want to do 3. I want to do one at the end of June, one at the end of July, one at the end of August. So then at least everybody gets a chance to come and hang out. Anything more than 50 cars there, I'm done. I'm done. But there is a cricket club across the road, and depending on where their calendar is, there is a possibility of us being able to utilize their car park. So we monitor it after 3 months, see where it is. So we do have the potential for. It's not so much the people; it's the parking. Fortunately, all the other businesses on the estate don't trade on a Saturday, so we can use their spaces as well. Already cozied up to everybody on the estate. They'll get cutting boards for Christmas. My wife jokes that's your answer to everything, isn't it? We give a bottle of wine, give them a board, give them 2 boards, give them 3 boards. But do you enjoy the? Oh, I haven't used it. It's too beautiful. It's wood glued together. Cut it all up. Oh, but what if I damage it? Bring it back, I'll sand it. Okay. So I've asked all the questions that I've needed to, and everybody in the States informative, and it's lovely. It's out in the country on a farm. You can't even hear the road. It's nice, and we've got the big shop there, and we had eight of us there yesterday, including the guys putting the ceiling up, standing upstairs, and I'm thinking we're barely touching the space. So I have no doubt that we could easily accommodate 50 people upstairs, downstairs, what have you. The problem that I've got, and this is going to sound like I'm really entitled, and I'm not. To me, the space doesn't actually feel that big because I'm so used to it. But what put it in perspective is the space that we've allocated, we created upstairs. That was the space that I had in my first big workshop that I shared with Gooch, 600 square feet. So actually 600 square feet is huge. I really don't want to come across like, I found 600 square feet on the mezzanine. It managed to create that space. And I want to share that space with everybody. We've been in conversation with a few suppliers and a few companies, because obviously we have a makers meet once a month, but what am I going to do with that space the other 29 days of the month? And we're looking at maybe doing sort of some weekend classes or workshops. What's difficult for me, my preferred medium is working with wood. This isn't a woodworkers club, and I've got to take myself to task on that. So I've been speaking with Idris about possibly bookbinding, which is, he makes beautiful books. I'm sure you guys you probably have one. He made me a really lovely one for Christmas, but instead of the sort of matte cardboard finish, we experimented with some veneers, so like a veneered and leather A4 PC special. It's lovely. I think that would be quite a popular class, and you could consume the full 8 hours doing it. So the idea is the space up there, we're getting the sparks coming in, we're going to get floor fed power, so we can put sort of 5 large workbenches there so we can accommodate 10 people. And I've got Sarah coming down next weekend from Uplift Furnishings.
Yep. Fantastic.
I think she's the bollocks. I showed her all the scraps. Well, you see the bins of leather and fabric that I've got, and she was positively giddy with excitement. But
she's just awesome anyway. So
I think she's brilliant. She's part of our what we've been calling our Friday night family. It was her, both the Sophs, hashtag Nate, Idris, Lindsay, and then Essie and his missus showed up at the end, and that was our crew on the Friday night, and that was a wicked time. Our face definitely didn't fit in the restaurant because they stuck us in the furthest bloody corner away from the door. It didn't take our order. It didn't take our order until they closed. And we were as loud and as coarse as possible because we didn't want to disappoint.
Of course.
But she's only in Surrey, so it's not a million miles away. And I can give her some of my knowledge. She's a bit worried about larger machinery. She wants a table saw, but she's not sure how to use one. And she's interested in CNC. So thinking like, here's a project we can do today on the CNC and the table saw. In the meantime, have a look up here, and I want to know more about textiles and sewing, because I don't care. I'm a dude. I'm supposed to be big and hairy. You're not supposed to use a sewing machine. Well, fuck yeah, I want to use a sewing machine. I want to make cool shit. Don't want to just make stuff out of wood.
That's right.
I found myself huge industrial twin needle sewing machine that I got for a filthy price.
Because of course you did.
Because of course I did. So I could use her help on how to do it, and then she could use a bit of my help on the woodworking side of it. So it's give and take with the knowledge, and
like that's something that Maker community is very, very good at. It's that shared knowledge, shared experience to kind of uplift everyone, aren't they?
No, I think it's brilliant. 20, 30 years ago, people wouldn't share that knowledge because they think that you'd be in competition with them.
There are still people like that today. That's the crazy thing. There are still people who won't.
There are, but I'll tell you exactly how to make a veneered chaotic end grain cutting board, because you know what? Actually, it's fucking hard work, and even if you know how to do it, you might not do it. But if you do it, just give me a credit. Just say thanks. So somebody's inspired by me. That makes my head big enough to get me stuck and not walk out the door. I haven't got a problem with that. You're not in competition with me. I mean, there was a dude in Australia, saw years ago. I think it was when I started messing around with veneer, made those like really crazy cartoon looking boards. And he was blown away by it. Then he made one the same, and he named it after me. Somebody named a cutting board after me. He called it, what do you call it? Cunningham's Fancy. Too happy about it. They named it after me, and he gave me a shout. And he's in Australia, but even if he was down the road, it wouldn't actually really bother me that much, because work's inspiring. He's not copying what I'm doing and doing, if you ordered one of these from Wish knockoff, you know what I'm talking about.
There's an element as well. Even if I'm just like, for me, the Welsh cakes, I've given out the recipe of how to make it. I've shown people on video how to make the Welsh cakes. But I hate to think about how many thousands of those Welsh cakes, because I've been making them for well over 30 years. So I've had a bit of practice.
Yeah.
There's somebody else having a go. Yeah, they might make something that tastes good and it's all right, but they're not going to be quite the same as mine, because they've made 20.
Yes.
It's like, I don't mind that. Yeah, they can make more, and they can make more, and they can make more. It's fine. Yeah, they may catch me up. Yeah, it didn't take me 30 years to get how to make them as well as I do. Yeah, but it just took a lot of practice.
Exactly.
So if other people practice, that's fine.
In fairness, most people who if they start handing out Welsh cakes, someone will try one and go, "Oh, these are nearly as good as Andy's."
So I think in that respect, I like sharing knowledge, and if I don't know how to do something, I'll learn it. You know what? I've made the mistakes. Now you don't have to. Have you thought about this?
Yeah.
Have you thought about that? I'm not teaching you how to suck eggs, but try it this way, and then tell me what you think. If you get stuck, come back and give us a shout. And yeah, it's nice. It feels good, because then a lot of people reciprocate that as well.
Exactly, and one of the things that I've sort of banged on about quite a lot is that transferal of knowledge. When you've got experience in one particular thing, and when you start looking at something new, everyone's got a different subset of transferable knowledge and skills. So if three of you all learn the same thing at the same time, the same place, you're all going to have different sets of transferable knowledge to come to it. So even with one person training three people on something at the same time, you're going to get three completely different results anyway. So anyone who comes and replicates something that you've done, it's never going to be a true copy anyway. It's always going to have their own little nuance to it and their own set bit of experience that they've put into it as well.
No, absolutely. I mean, I liken it to making drawers. There's as many ways to make drawers as Heinz has pickles. There is no real one way. I've been shown one way to make a drawer. I've adapted that, and I've shown that to somebody else. They've taken some people like to put like a captive bottom in. Some people will rebate the sides and slide the back in, and then pin it underneath it. There's no, well, that's how we've done it for 1,400 years, man and boy. No, if it works and it doesn't fall apart, and you take your loads into consideration, who's to say that's the wrong way?
Yeah.
And like,
gatekeepers. That's who it is. That's who gets to say there's a right and wrong way. Just people who are gatekeep.
Well, I don't. Certain things, yes, there's a correct way to do it, but there's so many different ways that you can apply the process. It necessarily isn't the same as somebody else, but you end up with the same net result. Who's to say that's wrong? But I notice a lot in our group, Jamie. We're always constantly bouncing ideas off of each other, and call it the hive mind, don't we?
Well, that and winding each other up.
Oh well, yeah, that goes without saying. That's standard. But like what Johnny does with his steels, and how did you do that? Well, what if you do this? It gives knowledge. It's like, okay, that's building on my knowledge base. Maybe at some point I have the confidence to have a go. Or we're talking to you about like the difference between, like, say, CNC router and 3D printing, where 3D printing is almost infinitely scalable. And what was it you made? It was like a 32-hour runtime, wasn't it, to make each individual piece? Or was it helmet or something?
Oh, we've done a few things like that where it's been crazy amounts of hours.
Because what fascinates me about that is, well, actually, you could make it far quicker just by scaling up the amount of machines that you have.
Yeah.
With CNC router, it doesn't translate the same way, because it's sort of 2D. You're not making individual components that you put together. I suppose you could, but 3D printers take up such a small amount of space. It is quite easy to scale that up and to grow exponentially with 3D printing. And well, I had an idea of it. You confirmed that to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who have print farms that do big props or costumes or things, and they'll have 20 3D printers in a room, just shaking the shit out of all the shelves. But
and that's how you can make
this parts.
And then you can make this one complete unit in 4 hours instead of 36 hours. I mean, that's what Ooznest do. They've got a wall of about 100 producers there, just churning out all the controller boxes and everything for the machines. Very impressive what they do at such a young age. I think they're 23 and 24. Those guys blow me away. But and everything about CNC, I've learned from them. Again, knowledge freely given. Between them and veterans, there's not much I can't cut up on a CNC. It's just I've got to apply myself and I've got to find the time.
It's that scalability thing of age, like you're talking about before. When you're younger and you don't quite have the cash, but you've got time, and then as you get to that sort of transition point in your life where it goes the other way, and then time is the scarce resource, and you've got a little bit more flexibility with what you spend, but you can never claim that time back.
No, you can't. We've all got a finite amount of it. Used to be a question that was bandied around, wasn't it? It was always more space or more time. And I used to be for a long time, just up until very recently, actually. I would have always wanted more space, but I think I was biased from having a really small shop, because having that really finite space eats an awful lot of your time. So moving into a bigger space, you've got something set up here, something set up there. You don't have to pack it up when you move from process to process. That buys you more time, but you can only have so much space. You still need the time. And if you would ask me now, well, okay, I've got the space, but it is time. It's only become apparent in the last 12 months with how much we've scaled up at work. We've lost 4 project managers. We haven't replaced them. And our workload now as a company is probably 150% greater than it was when we had those 4 extra bodies. So you're running 6-7 projects concurrently. I'm not going to bore you with the details, because you'll fall asleep and you'll probably start stressing and raging. Away from that now, because I'm on leave, and last time I took leave was actually the first time that I fully switched off, because every previous time you're still checking, you're still wondering, you're going to come back to a shitstorm the following Monday, but whether you looking at it or you're ostrich away from it, you're still going to have that same shitstorm. So you enjoy the time off. You've got to have a work-life balance. At the moment, there's not much of it. There really isn't.
So that's a phrase that I've stopped using, that work-life balance thing, because especially as a maker, it doesn't apply anymore to us, because it's not work-life, because we still work as our life. It's a work-rest balance. It's just sometimes we work for other people, sometimes we work for ourselves, sometimes we work paid for other people, and sometimes we work for other people for fun, for the love of what we're doing. And then sometimes we go, shit, I need to not do something for a couple of days.
Yeah.
and then we go back to doing all the work again. So a work-rest balance seems to fit the maker.
No, that is a better way of putting it, actually. I like that.
I like that because work is part of our life.
Exactly.
Work is part of our life. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice way of putting it. Because it's not like there's my life and there's my work. You can't balance that because
they're intertwined, aren't they? And then in between, we make time for our craft, for our hobbies, for making, or hanging out, which don't get to do enough. Do it virtually, but hang out in person, it's so much better. It's so much better.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't put stickers on you virtually.
No, you can't. You still call me names though, and intimate that I'm a dwarf, even though I'm not. It's coming back.
I've just realised as well, though, that in every one of the videos so far, in every one of these podcast videos, this has been on display. If I can actually point at it.
Oh, yes.
For the benefit of the audio listeners, Jamie's pointing to a copy of his logo that's about 2 feet across.
Which that young man there did for me.
That's right. No, that was some time ago. That's when I was still learning how to do toolpaths then. It's like, want to do your logo? I'll do your logo. I'll do your logo. I'll do your logo. I'll do your logo. I've fucking forgotten all about that. At least I got it the right way up.
Yeah, I was talking to Ellen the other day, actually talking about stamps and how every time I do any kind of like a leatherworking stamp, I'll 3D print it so they can press in at every single one of them that has been printed twice because I always mess it up the first time and forget to mirror it. It's just it just seems to be one of those things, and it's the same thing with stuff like that. It's just it's par for the course, I think.
You need to reframe that in how you're thinking about it. You're not making a mistake in doing the kind of negative. You're making sure that it's going to look correct in the positive first.
Yeah, test print so that I can, one for me, then one for the leather.
Absolutely. So, what are you guys working on currently at the moment?
Here.
Yeah.
Basically. Up until Maker Central, there was just a big lump that had my diode laser in it, and I managed to find a good friend, Andy Peckham, who was willing to take it off my hands, which meant that freed up the space for me to turn this into a bit of an electronics Raspberry Pi kind of area. So I've been sort of gently poking at that today, getting power and USBs and screen and DIN rail and all the rest of the crap kind of set up. So that's been taking my time up today, I think.
Excellent. How do you find the balance between sort of infrastructure and projects where you've got to build?
It's one and the same for me.
It's because I'm like a cuckoo sometimes. I'll start on this and then I'll abandon that and run off to another nest because I want to start to do something else. And if I'm looking for
you're just working your way through the bird kingdom.
Oh, yes.
Magpie and cuckoo. Ostrich, ostrich as well.
Yeah, I think they're rather apt analogies, don't you?
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of my biggest faults is I have too many things on the go. If you look in the shop, I'm 90% done with this thing. I'm 80% done with this thing. I'm 50% done with this thing. When I made my offcut bids, I was like, yeah, I'm going to make a bunch of these. Right, no, I'm not, because I need to build an assembly table. So then that got 90% done, just so I could build my offcut bins. Assembly table's done now, and we've got 3 of them, but it was not seeing it all the way through to the end.
Yeah, but in fairness, for those who don't know you, you're, almost everything me and Andy built is the prototype and it functions, so it lives as that forever. Whereas your stuff is, edge banded in fancy exotic hardwoods and precision milled down to the absolute nuts. So it's to say it's like 90% there. It's about 150% there of where I would ever get one to.
Fair enough. That was very kind of you. Thank you, Jamie.
That was me having a poke. That wasn't a compliment.
Oh. But now that I've decided to open the shop up and host meets and to the general public, I got to get my shit together, and I need to get it a little bit more organised.
That's an accountability that most makers don't get, and I think this is where things like actually sort of challenges, like you were doing the kind of the 3-week challenges when you were meeting at the Woodyard. And you were getting those kind of sort of things. Yeah, here's something that people are going to kind of commit to, and they've got to then put forward as a something to be judged. And it's that having that accountability, or like yourself, having people coming in, that just kind of raises the stakes on everything. Yeah, it gives you that kind of. I don't want to let people down by I mean, like my daily drawings. Because I've stated that I'm going to do these as a daily drawing. Sometimes they're rubbish, sometimes they're better, but it's because I've committed to I'm going to do it on a daily basis. I have got something done on a daily basis. If we've been tidying. We're still kind of in the middle of exam season. Got 2 kids, one doing GCSEs, one doing A levels at the moment. So pretty much everything's on hold. But it's half term this next week. We've got some visitors coming a couple of different times, different visitors. It's right, well, we're going to have to get the garden sorted because we don't want people to see just how rubbish the garden is. The grass was at 5 or 6 inches. The patio needed jet washing. Just broken pallets on the side in one bit. And it's just like, can't really invite people into a garden when it looks that bad. So we spent last weekend and this weekend, painting the new shed, jet washing the patio, clearing off. We've got a 12-foot long patio table, and it's like it's just covered in pots and rubbish and a bundle of old nails pulled out of a pallet, and it's like now everything's nice and clean and tidy, and because we've got that accountability of people coming to visit.
Yeah, absolutely. What is it about large horizontal surfaces where you're almost compelled to put something on there? If it's clear, it doesn't feel right, does it? And this is rather backwards. When I was in the smaller shops, you have to be incredibly disciplined. Everything has to have its home, because within 2 days, you don't have any clear surface to work on. But you've got more space. You think, I can use this surface. But then you go buy another machine, stick it on there. Suddenly that surface isn't clear. You need to make a surface clear. So you pile the other one up like this.
You've been in the Tinkerage then?
Then when you've got a job on, it's not as much fun. You don't engage as much enjoyment out of it, because suddenly everything becomes a compromise, and it shouldn't be. And then you get a bit fucked off because you're blaming yourself for being unorganized. And I've gotten a lot better. If you would have seen the shop 9 months ago, I'd probably had to hand in my man card for life. It was pretty bad. It's because everything's about 80% there. Once you get the stuff done upstairs, the infrastructure done upstairs for the makerspace, which is, it looks awesome. It looks like an operating theatre at the moment. It's not going to look like that forever, but I think it's a fucking bollocks. I can start condensing everything else, and just the simple fact of spending 4 or 5 hours up there moving stuff around, you know what, actually there's a whole bunch of space here. Instead of just leaving stuff to pile up, I'm probably going to need a 40-yard skip to get rid of everything, and I take pictures of it. It's probably going to upset. I could have used that. So, trust me, you can't, because I've thought long and hard about it. And that is really hard for me to be ruthless and just get rid of something because you have that internal monologue.
Tell me about it.
Have you used it in the last year? No. Well, you're going to throw it away? No, but I could. Dude, shut up.
Yeah, but you did this last time.
You have this conversation out loud with yourself and, right, throw it in there. But do you ever feel when you have an argument or a conversation with yourself, you always come off as a loser, don't you? You never win.
Fair point. But even though you did this last time. Last time you got a skip and you cleared a load of crap out. And then you sent us a photo of it. And it was just loads of bits that like I needed to get or was going to use like similar stuff. And you're like, oh, yeah, the skip's just been picked up. Yeah.
It's a shame you're not closer, Jamie.
Let's come and raid your stocks every time I need to do a project.
But you get down to a tiny little piece like that and you think, well, no, for that. No, I'll cut up into a pen blank. Somebody can use that. I said, no, just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. So I've actually got a process now that anything under 250 mil, then I just throw away. So I was thinking, well, can I get the best value out of every single piece? But you never get round to it. Boxes and boxes and boxes of a local barbecue company that wants all my oak offcuts now to burn and put in their smokers. Yeah, come and collect it. You can have it. Just take it.
Scrape the wood glow off.
The hardest thing to get rid of is the wood chippings. You have a local stable that take them, but horses are allergic to walnut. Did you know that?
No.
Now you do. And I couldn't guarantee that it would be walnut free because you're going to have microdust in the extraction system and in the filters because sure, like everybody else, I don't clean them as regularly as I should. So the farmer takes them now and just uses them as mulch. So that's there's companies that will pick it up and they turn it into biomass pellets, but they want 20, 30 bags at a time. I'm not joking, but I actually don't have space for that. I mean, you guys think that I'm fine, but so really all that's left in there is just me getting out of my own way, organizing it and just being ruthless, getting rid of the shit. So what I have there, I have a clear plan, what I'm going to do with it. And now it's almost like if I haven't used it for 12 months, probably get rid of it. Unless it's kind of old and it's cool, then I keep it. But then, yeah, see, you're making conditions and compromises with yourself. But I am better. I've probably got 40 yards worth of crap up there. There's a lot of plasterboard and offcuts from what we've been doing, but it does actually feel quite cathartic just to let it go. It's gone. Right, now I can focus. Now I'm going to be organised.
Now I've got a big patch of floor space that I can put another machine in.
No, there's no machines going there. Workbenches. That's for the community. If anything's going to stay pristine, it will be that and that alone. Downstairs, it's a different story. But that's kind of why the big sounder's got to go, because that space could actually be better utilised for something else. It's paid for itself probably 10 times over, but I'm not using it as much now as I would be. It is a compromise with the extraction because you've seen it's huge, and the extraction should really come out of the top and back on like a 45, straight another 45 just to maximize the curve of the airflow. I've got it coming out a hard 90 to the left because it's the only way that I can route it through underneath the mezzanine. So after a day sanding, I've got to clean the inside out, clean it out, and just as time puts dust everywhere. And I'm really tired of running river tables through it. And it's just going to be really nice. So I can't do it. I'm too busy. No, I can't do it because I don't have a sander. But a great big drum sander like that, it's designed for wood dust, which is granular. So the shoots on it, they're only about 20 mil at the bottom. Resin dust, it's fibrous. You turn your back on it, it's just clumped together, clogs the shoots. You got to turn it off, and I had to disable the limit switches on there just so I can open doors while it's running to poke everything up and through, which probably isn't going to safety police, but it's becoming a compromise. And the footprint of it's probably like 16 square meters. Because you got to have enough for both the doors on the sides and then the in-feed and out-feed. I've got plenty of other uses for that.
Two smaller ones.
I'm going to get a smaller one, but then I want some more space over on that side because the left-hand side of the shop is all machine. So we've got the panel saw and the cabinet saw, chop saw, the lathe, and the bandsaws and the assembly tables. The right-hand side is, we've got 2 CNCs over there, the laser over there. Then at the front where I'm open is where the forge is and the anvil. So I want to kind of segregate both sides. And then Sander is just sitting in the middle with his stupid big googly eyes, taking up too much space.
It's about what? It's like 3 meters square or something, just for the lump itself, isn't it?
Just for the lump itself, and then you've got door on each side. So you've got door on the left-hand side where you change the belts, and then on the back-hand side where you do the tracking. Then the doors open out like this. So you need another 1.5 meters this side. You open the door, and you've got to fit your full frame between the door and the wall. So I don't actually have that much space. I want, if I need to pull my car in there, I want to be able to pull my car into the shop and not crash into the standard. But all joking aside, it's earned its keep, but it's not now. In that space, I could put something else in there that would have a longer duty cycle and probably earn me a bit more money as well. And I hate sanding resin tables. I don't particularly enjoy making them either, but it's not. Well, actually, can you say river table, resin tables? I feel that they've got a shelf life. I think in 5,
it's
6
a fad,
years,
isn't it?
Yeah, what I don't want is I'll make it and I'll make it beautiful. I'm quite fastidious about my finishes. The last one that I did, you saw the photos. I couldn't get a good photo of it because the ceiling kept reflecting on the resin in the middle. It was really, really quite hard to get a photo of it. But what I don't want is a customer to look at that in 5 years' time and think, I spent thousands of pounds on that and I don't like it, because they're going to associate the maker with it without realizing, almost subconsciously. And I'm vain. I don't want people to think bad of me. I'm joking, but if you're going to spend that money, a nice dining table, solid oak, solid walnut, an heirloom table that will last generations, that will always look current.
Will always look good. Yeah,
timeless. It will always look good. I think they're a fad. There's tons of people out there making stunning looking ones, but are they going to look that good in 5-10 years? Probably not. And it's horrible to work with. Sanders don't like it. Routers don't like it. Saws don't like it. So much cleanup in there, and it doesn't smell particularly great. It just clogs everything up. Much rather just work with wood. So waffling. The Sander's going to go. The Sander's going to go. So if anybody wants a great big huge 28 horsepower double drum sander, DM me. You got to come and take it away. And give me money, because that's how it works. But it's going. It's coming. It's got to go.
I'm wondering if I could find someone right out. Be bigger than the Tinkerage.
Well, you could probably put the Tinkerage in it.
Yeah, so I'm thinking.
Well, you could take that out. You could break out. What could you do with a 15 horsepower 3-phase motor? Make a 36-inch disc sander?
Could it? Like people have anvils in their gardens, paint it white and just have it in the garden as a garden piece.
Yeah.
Really, really, really powerful spinning bird table.
Fairground for the birds. Yeah.
Indeed. That's the Essex Makers plan in a nutshell. I've just been going on without kind of just dominating the conversation. I do apologise for that.
I was going to say, is that the introduction over?
What?
Yeah.
Is that the introduction over?
Yeah, I think so. So, will you guys be making it down? Do you think?
End of June, I won't be able to.
Well, then it's
End
also
of
the
August, I won't be able to.
July then?
If I'm going to have to, it's going to be July. Not if I'm going to have to. If I'm going to, then it's going to have to be July.
I think we might need to think about, see if we can make that a date.
Brilliant. That's the idea. Hopefully, after a couple of months' time, we'll might be able to increase the establishment. It's just parking. That's the biggest thing. There is a local Premier Inn 10 minutes down the road if people want to stay over, and it's going to be a Saturday event. But as a barbecue, I think I've always loved the idea of everybody sitting around a table eating together.
Yeah,
because you have the best conversations. You're all an equal there.
Yeah,
I like a round table the best because Arthurian legend wasn't. Nobody was at the head of the table. Obviously, this would be a long square table, but just sitting down, jabbing away, eating, talking shit. It's brilliant.
And it's easy at a round table. It's much easier to see who you're speaking to instead of having to like duck around people. And
yes, absolutely.
I used to hate that with kind of like Christmas dues at work, and you you go to a pub and the food would be great, but you'd be on like there'd be like 20 of you on a table that's kind of 30 feet long, and it's like all you can talk to is the people either side of you and the 2-3 people opposite
two
you.
either side and the few opposite. Yeah,
and it's just like it's kind of like it's not really the kind of whole department type thing.
No, that's why I like the idea of benches at a dining table as opposed to chairs. With a chair, it's a very static, fixed spot. You've got a bench. You can slide up next to somebody. You can sit wherever you want on the table. I quite like the idea of that, and I don't like making chairs, so that's why I try to steer towards benches. But it used to be the kitchen table was the hub of the house, wasn't it? And now we've got these, and everybody's generally your face is glued to it, or we're working, and so much of the time now you eat in front of a screen. And I'm guilty of it, just like everybody else. Although I'm not allowed to do it anymore because we bought some new sofas, and my wife is very precious about her new sofas. Can't sit on the sofa and eat it. You sit on the floor and eat your dinner. No, actually, don't have to sit at the table. But actually, you know what? It's got us around the table again, talking to each other when we eat, instead of everybody mumbling, looking at their phone while they're eating with one hand and having one eye on this and one eye on that. I think it's brilliant. I think we've lost a little bit of that.
We dinner on the table most nights. Sometimes we'll have a kind of what we call our TV dinner, which is kind of usually Saturday night, but then it depends on what we're actually eating anyway. So sometimes we'll try and do something. So it's pizza Saturday night in front of the TV, but that's even that we still do as a family. But otherwise, it's dinners on the table. The 4 of us here. Although we've had some, as people who watched last week knew, I had a pretty bad head cold, so it was like we'd get people kind of my eldest is desperate not to get it because doing A levels, so it was like, I'll have my dinner in my room, thank you. It's been doing that for 10 days. But other than that, it's I think it's good to, as a family, to sort of eat together.
I mean, we haven't actually got a dining room table, so all of our meals are on like the little fold-out collapsible tables. So it's all just in the living room on the couch because that's the only place we can really fit people to eat. So, but it's still that family thing. It's still when we have guaranteed family time from us all doing our own things and stuff anyway. Even if it's not on a one table.
In our house, because of work, I have no fixed time that I'm home. I can be home at 5 o'clock, 6, 7, or 8 o'clock when so I was eating by myself. So now I was using the kitchen as my office because we've got Sophie back with us. All the rooms are occupied by varying ages of children. I had the printer and everything up on the kitchen table, so we couldn't really eat there. I'm taking everything to the workshop now. It's like, wow, we do have a table. I need to make a new table actually because it's a bit shit. But now we can actually sit around the table, and the threat of death, we can't eat on the sofa anymore. Quite rightly so. It's forced us around the table, and it's better. It's better. So when I am home early from work, then I can do it, which is kind of key as to why I want to consolidate the day job into the workshop, because then it's easy to set my own hours. If I don't have to go visit a site, I could be home at generally at a time. I can sit around the table and eat with everybody. I mean, it's especially important with Alfie. He's 9 now. The first 5 years of his life, when I was on the tools, I worked nights. I worked up and down the country. But it's not until they get about 5 or 6 they actually have a sense of time. Wait a minute, where's Daddy? You know, now I'm older, which is why I moved into project management. Very conscious of the time that I spend with him. Sophie and Luke are much older now, and they need you just as much when they're teenagers in their 20s as they do when they're little. Just need you in a different way. Tango ice blasts. But it is finding that family time while trying to juggle everything else. So it goes back to what you said, Jamie, work and rest. When I'm at home, I don't want to think about work, not the day job work, although my brain never stops. I'm still thinking about what I can make next, but my focus is then on the family. And I think that it's important, because without support of the family, we can't do what we do.
Exactly. We rely so much on their support.
Yeah. So in the background, I think Anna's as much a part of what I do as me being the face of it, just because she can keep the house running while I'm out playing.
Yeah, give you the freedom to do what you want to do.
And then I take the kids out on a Sunday, gives her that day to do whatever she wants. It's a nice balance. It's a fantastic balance.
I think that's the key, isn't it? It's finding a balance between all of it. I think that's where a lot of us struggle initially. You know, that balance between it's that give and take. I think is it's difficult to realize that, I think, or at times to keep that in check.
Yeah, I agree. There may time, but everything's a balance, really, isn't it? Not just work, your home life, giving the wife time, giving the kids time. You're just keeping everybody happy all the time, and then
trying
to, and not bringing the day job home. Which I suppose when I'm out visiting sites, that is good, because that gives me time to decompress in the car on the way home.
Yeah.
So don't bring the stress and the bullshit through the front door, because it's not fair. Switch off. The stress and bullshit is going to be in the morning. Still going to be there in the morning, whether you're stressed at home or whether you're stressed at work. Leave the stress at the front door. It's still going to be there tomorrow. Sort it out tomorrow. Funny enough, I was talking to one of my colleagues about that tonight. Actually, he's in a bit of a pickle because one department at work has stitched him up, and then somebody else has said they'd do something they wouldn't, and he goofed because he didn't put it into an email. But I said, don't worry about it. If they're going to kick off Monday morning, they're going to kick off Monday morning. Get some sleep now. Don't stay up all night trying to do something that you can't change, especially on a Sunday when everybody's allergic to responding. Well, actually, in my game, it's any day that ends in Y, but don't bring it home with you, or try not to.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that. That chunk of commute time, or that chunk of decompression time.
Yes.
Whether that is into the workshop or straight into a video game, or whatever your poison is for decompressing, to be able to get out of that work mindset before you get into home life mindset. You know, just in the same way that you need to get out of home mindset to get into work mindset.
Yeah.
Jamie, you're working predominantly from home at the moment, and have been obviously for quite a while. I mean, those who know you know full well that in front of you is at least half a dozen screens, some of which are work and some of which aren't. I mean, do you find that transition from kind of work to home mode, is it something that you can just flick between when your focus changes from one screen to another, or is it something that at the end of the day you're still thinking maybe more about work than you would have done if you were commuting into the office?
I think for me, it's a relatively unique situation because I've generally been quite practiced at it. So even when I was working in the office, I would still come home. I still had access to be able to jump in and do things or respond or anything anyway. So it's that switching off. I've just got better at doing it, or more practiced at doing it on the fly when I need to. You know, although we've got kind of set hours, other people work longer. So it might be 8, 9 o'clock at night. I get a message, and I might be sat here anyway, but I get a message from one of my work colleagues, and I can just sort of rotate 30 degrees and answer the email or fix the problem or reboot the system or whatever. So I've had to get good at being able to switch between, but there's always something going on in there. So there's, even when I'm switched off, it's still bubbling away, just the same way that the maker brain is or anything else. It's work has been such a massive part of my existence that it's just the switch off never fully happens. You know, there's always something there. There's always a consideration. You know, like when you said before, Paul, about, you know, if you take a week off, there's always that shitstorm at the end of it. You know, and you tend to, if you're going to take 5 consecutive days off, you know, you're going to work 2.5 extra days in the week before and probably 3.5 the week after. So you never actually take the time off. You always work through it anyway, just either side, because the work's still there. It's always going to be there. There's always going to be the jobs there. But that kind of forcing myself to not think about it, it has been really difficult, because it's so ingrained to just do what needs doing. Whether it's, you know, working for colleagues where I get paid, or working for colleagues who I call friends who are, you know, makers, or colleagues who just happen to work for other bosses. You know, it's all just work, you know, regardless of what it is. It's answering a text to tell your mate how to change the Facebook security settings or whatever. It's, you know, it's the same thing, isn't it, with, you know, with mechanics and IT people and, you know, the handful of other things that you're never out of work mode, because someone always needs your help for something. So that's been so ingrained in me that you just have to learn to task switch, to try and grasp bits of sanity or non-work time as and when you can.
See, I think for me, I tried to work from home, but during lockdown, there's just far too many distractions. So to me, the front door, it's like a binary switch. That's my on-off switch, which actually works quite well, because that's a strategy that we've employed with Alfie. The front door is a disconnect between home and school. Just there's no consistencies in autism. So for the benefit of the listeners, my son's autistic. You know, one autistic person, you know one autistic person, don't you? We found that's a strategy that works best for him, to separate school. So I thought, let me try it out, and actually that's what works for me. That's my mojo. That front door is my switch off from work. So that's what I go out the door, then I'm in work mode in the car to the workshop. That I can do 90% of my day job from the workshop, which is where I built the office upstairs. Jamie, as you know, my office has been in my kitchen for the last year and a half. I'm still too distracted because I'm looking at the machinery and I want to go play with that. I'm upstairs, I'm removed from everything. For me, I've really got to have a final on-off switch to be able to switch from this mode to that mode. And then making mode, to me, that's not work. I'm doing something I enjoy and people are giving me money for it. If I don't want that to feel like work, because if it feels like work, then I'm going to stop enjoying doing it. Then it's just going to become a job.
Job too.
Yeah. That's why I have enough job in job one. I don't need any more job. I don't want any more day jobs. And also, by taking it away from the house, we've we've gained the kitchen back, which alludes to what we were discussing earlier about, the table being sort of the center, the hub of the house when you sit down and have a meal. But for me, it's very much on off. I can't like this. That doesn't work for me because I'm not fully diverting 100% of my attention to one thing or another. I can't have too many multiple thought streams going on at once, or I'll freeze. I become a deer in the headlights. Which is something that I'm working on, which is probably why I've got 100 different things all at 80 and 90% completion, because I've got to have that tunnel vision. I've got that in the work, and I really should probably apply that to the workshop side, the fun side, the making side as well. And I think that would make me better. I think we've all got faults. It's just it's only them identifying them and working out the strategies to move forwards from them. And I kind of know where I need to go now, but that's just through trial and error, through age and through an experience. But for me, it's I have to have an on-off switch, and the front door is it, and that's what works. And then I have that half-hour decompression time in the car to think, to grind things through, to phone up people and bollock the fuck out of them, or to listen to some music, or sometimes just to have nothing on and cruise in silence. What about?
I mean, nothing on the radio, not just not like taking all your clothes off.
No, no one wants to see that. Nobody's got time for that. Oh, what about you, Andy? How do you find the switch? Is it obviously work?
Well, and for me, it's different because for me, at the moment, it's just kind of I'm a house husband and home educator, so it's kind of it all merges into one. There's no I wake up, I'm on, I go to bed, it's off. That's it. Yeah, and I just chop and change between things. But when I was teaching, I struggled with the switch off. I really did. I mean, that's probably why I've got technically have chronic blood pressure issues. Yeah, because I didn't switch off. Yeah, stress was just a big thing. I'd be in work at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd get home at 6:30 at night, and then I'd do another 4 or 5 hours of stuff of the evening. Yeah, and that was term time and most short holidays. Yeah, that was just a continuous thing. Yeah, weekends. I was averaging a short week would be 55 hours. Yeah, a long week, 80 hours. I wasn't switching off.
Did you find towards the end though that you were able to switch off, or was it? It's the whole way through.
From when it changed, the stress changes as a teacher. Yeah, your first few years, you're kind of stressed about things like planning lessons and dealing with awkward classes, and that's something that does disappear. That disappears. Yeah, by the time I've been teaching 10 years, I could walk into I think even now I've been out of the classroom for 4.5 years. I think I could certainly at GCSE, I could walk into a classroom and still deliver a good lesson without doing any external preparation. Just because it's like riding a bike.
Yeah.
And okay, there may be slight changes to the curriculum or whatever that I might need to sort of look up. But and even A level, I could probably 5 minutes preparation, and I could walk in and deliver a lesson. For the majority of the lessons, 80% of the lessons I could deliver like that with very little preparation, because I had 20 years of experience to back that up. When you're doing those things, you're teaching some things hundreds and hundreds of times. But as you kind of, I think if you stay just as a teacher, that's probably a fairly safe thing, and stress levels probably down. But I moved up through the ranks into sort of middle leadership, never stayed away from senior leadership. But then you've got those stresses of kind of people management. You've got those stresses of you're that barrier between senior management and Ofsted and government and the teachers in your department who you want to deliver good lessons without the stress of the crap that's raining down from above. But being able to filter that stuff to kind of go, that thing's important and that thing's statutory, so we have to do that. But how do I do that in a way that is going to be manageable for those people? And then you're dealing also with the kind of, you've got the people coming to you going, I'm having problems with, Joe blogs in 9A. They've been a complete nightmare, and I'm really struggling with it to the point I can't sleep. I need help. So you're then taking on other people's stress to help them deal with that. And then every 5 years, the government throw in a kind of, we need to change the national curriculum and the exams, and so now all the schemes of work need to be written, and people like Ofsted coming in. Make sure when you spell Ofsted, there's only one F in Ofsted. Those sort of pressures that you get from organizing other people, stress is nearly always from other people, where they're kind of going, it's really important that you can get your students to demonstrate their learning. And we're going to come and we're going to look at that. And we want to be able to walk into any classroom when we do our inspections, for example, or when senior management are doing their rounds of lesson observations. And we want to be able to speak to any student, or to look in their books and to be able to see progress and to see learning in action. And as a kind of an educator, you're thinking, that's not how learning works. It's not. If you look at the pedagogy of learning, and if you look at how teaching works, and you look at how learning works, and you look at the psychology of it, that doesn't work. How do I deal with that?
At best, you could maybe test them in 20 years' time to see if when they reach that problem that they needed that bit of nugget of information.
Every single thing that kind of they look as kind of this will show progress. It's just a proxy, and it's so there are people who have for many years throughout inspections kind of gone. Here's a classic that kind of you heard about from sort of many years ago, and a teacher would go, right, class, we've got offset. It was in the days when they had more notice about inspections. You used to get kind of 6-8 weeks notice. Now it's sort of 24 hours or less than 24 hours. They'll phone up between 12 and 2 that they're coming in the next day. That's the kind of protocols. But in days gone by, they used to kind of give you notice. And you kind of go, okay, class, with Ofsted coming in. If we get somebody coming into the lesson, here's what we're going to do. And so they literally turn the class and they do things like, right, at the start of the lesson, everyone needs to put their hand up. If you really know what the answer is to the questions they'll ask, put up your right hand. If you don't know, put up your left hand. So they'll then pick students to kind of sort of show, they don't know it yet. And then towards the end of the lesson, they'll kind of, they do the same thing. And then they'll pick students who've got their right hand up rather than the left hand. And it's just like, oh, look, they've learnt it.
All right. Tick.
And so you as teachers, you're always dealing with that. And you're dealing with kind of the horrible students. You're dealing with the parents. Sometimes quite horrible parents. Sometimes lovely parents. Sometimes they're horrible because they're very pressurizing. Why isn't my son doing better? Why isn't my daughter doing better? Or just the classic of, well, I was a bully at school, so I don't see why my son shouldn't be a bully.
Did you, during your career as a teacher in the school, I remember when I was younger, if my work wasn't right, my parents would be blaming me for it. Has there been an upturn in where parents now blame the school?
There is an element of that. There's a cartoon that regularly does the rounds in
it's like
thing, which 1970s, and everyone's having to go at the student because they're not working, and then 2010 everyone's having to go at the teacher.
Is it as endemic as those cartoons portray, or is that vastly exaggerated?
It exists.
There's a bigger element of it now.
It exists. There is an element of truth to it, which is the same with any comedy, really. I think it's.
I think there probably are some than it used to be.
To an extent, it definitely is more prevalent, but it's not 100% true. It's not kind of every student. There are some parents who are like that. I spent 3/4 of my career in grammar schools, So yeah, the kids have been selected to get there. They've done exams, 11 plus to get in. And I could go into kind of the morals and ethics of that. I don't fully agree with grammar schools, but I sure do like teaching them, because you tend to deal with better behaved, not always, able students. And yeah, I've had some amazing students that I've been able to work with. I've worked in comprehensives and secondary moderns as well, and I've had some amazing students in those. But it's a different kind of relationship and different sort of working. But you do get some. So, for example, one school I worked at, grammar school, there was also in the same town an independent school. An independent school charges quite a lot of money for, I think it was like £6,000 or £7,000 per term. So you're looking at kind of £20,000 a year plus, by the time you add in kind of uniform costs and the like, because not cheap. Which also had a prep school. Now, prep school, a bit cheaper to send your son or daughter to. So a common practice by those who could afford it was to send their child to the prep school, where they'd be in smaller classes and they'd get a much, much higher level of education if they were able. They'd be having, for example, lessons in French, for example, that most students in a primary school wouldn't get. And you get other examples of that. But then they do that only to get to the point of, now they're good enough because they've had that smaller classes, more attention. They get them to the point where they're going to be almost guaranteed a place in the grammar school. But then they kind of go, we'll send them to the grammar school now, because we can't really afford to send them to the secondary private school because that's so expensive. And I have more than one parent whose attitude basically was, well, now you've got them in the grammar school. And I've had this from kind of parents who aren't in that position, who send them to private, sort of primary. And they kind of go, well, it's now your job to get them to work. And it's like, this is supposed to be a three-way relationship. If they don't do work at home, that's not my fault. We don't do prep. They don't get an extra 2 hours at the end of the day where they're kind of sitting in a room doing homework and there's somebody doing that. That's now your job. And they kind of forget that sometimes.
But it's interesting what you say about the smaller class size. I grew up, I was born, as was everybody, and left England at an early age in, I think it was 81. Then went to West Germany when Germany was still East and West. My dad was in the US Army. I think he was a private there at the time. Now, it was interesting. My level of education at my age here I was probably 18 months ahead of the equivalent age in the American education system, and was a school on an army base. And I ended up getting in trouble. My age would have put me in second grade, which I guess over here probably year when I was 6, going on 7. And I found that I was getting myself into a lot of trouble, not because I was a naughty kid or
bored.
I was bored, exactly. So they actually moved me up a year, which academically was great for me, but kids at that age, it was actually more difficult for me because of the teasing that I used to get for it, because I was younger. And I think the American mindset towards school compared to what we have over here, it's very, very different. Plus, these were military kids. But I think the formative years that I had, because it was such a smaller school, I think we had a class size of maybe 12. Went to our school, we had 35, 40 people in the class with one teacher. And I think that at that young age, I think the smaller class size, more one-on-one, I think it's absolutely key, because they say it's like the first 7 years of your life where you make more and more connections in your brain, and that's kind of because of fundamentals of how you learn and problem solve as you get older. Just interesting you saying that.
There's so much that can be unpacked from it. There's so much can be unpacked from it. I mean, some countries in Europe, they don't start children at school until they're 6 or 7. And they kind of they don't expect them to necessarily have had any training in. It varies from country to country in things like sort of formal writing, for example. They'll expect them to kind of add more sort of socialization, and the kind of the equivalent of nursery school that goes up to kind of that sort of age. It's more about play and social acclimatization. Yet
which
they make the advances.
Very, very key things to learn.
Yeah.
Going into
totally.
adulthood is that social play, that social connection, because that's what's like it or not.
I mean, and there's some awful things in the way. I mean, the differences between the US and the UK education system is, I don't know all of them. I don't claim to understand some of the differences, but some of the differences that I've seen is quite fundamental. I mean, again, this is going back, but my first year lab partner at university, he took an option to go out to America for his second year. It's just a swap. Somebody else came over, and he made a fairly good living by doing tutoring in maths, because his maths, which was he was good at maths, but he wasn't like super genius at maths. He was just typical British good at maths. He was tutoring people that should have been, or were age-wise, were much further ahead, and they just didn't have the grasp of the maths. They didn't have the training in the maths. They didn't have the background in the maths that he had.
We're a whole extra letter short.
Well, I mean, there is that as well. So there's some key sort of differences in that. I mean, after this week as well. I mean, let's not go there. Obviously, this last week in America, something needs to be acknowledged. Everyone knows what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But I stay away from it. I think is probably the best thing to do. But it's an expression of kind of I think, the education system in America. But I mean, then there's things like class sizes. There was an interesting report generated. There's a guy whose name's Mrs. Mind a moment, an Australian educationalist who did some fantastic research. John Hattie. But one of his key thing was to do research into other people's research. So what that allowed him to do, because one of the difficulties with educational research is you can't really kind of go like you can with kind of sort of drugs. If you want to test a new drug, once you've gone through the stages of clinical trials, you do double-blind tests. So you don't tell the doctor whether somebody's getting a placebo or whether they're getting the drug or whether they're getting kind of the old version of it. The patients don't know which one they're getting. They know they're part of a test, but no one knows the doctors don't know what they're giving. The patients don't know what they're getting. But somebody will collect that information together. You can't do that with kids and education. You can't experiment in that way. But one of the things that John Hattie would do is to sort of look at studies that have been done across the world, find ones that kind of correlated, and then bring all the data together. So instead of kind of having a study that maybe looked at a few hundred students, he would, with some of his studies, there'd be tens of thousands of students. So you can kind of start to make interesting little measures. Now, he came up with a whole pile of techniques that could be applied and came up with a way of sort of rating them and saying, look, if you do this, students will make normal level of progress. If you do this thing, students, where they experience this, make more than normal level of progress. Where this happens, students will often make less than normal levels of progress. And he rated up hundreds of sort of teaching strategies. And one of the things that came out of this, and the British government jumped on, and probably other governments too, came up with a thing that said class sizes make no difference to student attainment. Now, most people kind of see that or saw that statement and going, what? Doesn't make sense. Most teachers don't see that. That makes no sense. I mean, I've taught from classes. I think the smallest class I've had was 3 students. The largest class I've ever had was 34. My wife, who did work in primary for a while, she had classes in the high 30s. If I'm a teacher, if I've got a class for an hour and I've got 5 students, they get 12 minutes each if we split the time up evenly. If I've got 30 students, they get at best 2 minutes each of kind of individual time. So if I've got 30 students, 2 minutes, I can't do much in 2 minutes going from front to right. So I need to spend more time maybe delivering from the front, and then pick and choose who I'm going to speak to in any one particular lesson, and hopefully the next lesson choose other people. So over a period of time, everyone does get some individual feedback from me. Now, you find I've got colleagues who work in private schools. Yeah, class sizes are much smaller. And funnily enough, most private schools get better results compared to state schools with a similar cohort of students. But this report from John Hattie said class size makes no difference. Now, here's that was just a headline. The interesting thing was, if you actually dug into what he wrote, and actually, rather than just looking at the headline, rather than looking at the kind of the fancy graphics that he produced that kind of sort of gave these sort of ratings on how effective things were, basically, he looked at it, said, the majority of teachers, when they get a smaller class, do not know how to teach that class more effectively. So they continue to teach in the same way they would if they had a class of 30.
Right.
So the students don't get any benefit actually of being in the smaller class. And that's why the effectiveness of being in a smaller class appears to be nil.
So in effect, you're not saying that bigger class sizes don't make things worse. It's just the fact that bigger class sizes have become such a norm that teaching efficacy is reduced to the point where now smaller class sizes don't give you any benefit.
Yeah. Because the majority of teachers don't have the flexibility to be able to adapt
to a smaller class size.
Smaller classes. So they continue to teach the smaller classes in exactly the same way because of what they're used to. But from the teacher's point of view, it's easier. And often, they will have a better relationship with those students and there will be progress. But one of the issues with educational research is that the number of factors involved in trying to research the effectiveness of anything is so huge. You can't just apply the standard scientific method of, we'll change only one thing, because it's impossible to change only one thing in doing educational research. You've got so many possible factors. Yeah, every teacher has had classes. I've had classes that I've got on with so well. We've made so much progress because we've just clicked. They've been, well behaved. They haven't needed much input into kind of your behavior management, or that input was taken on board. It was quick. It was effective. I was able to then concentrate on teaching. They were responsive. Everyone was working together because they just gelled really nicely. But then you get other classes, you get one or two students can wreck a class. It's why I always say to sort of parents, people sort of say, oh, my student, my son or daughter is finding it really difficult because there are disruptive people in the class. Well, you need to get onto the school and you need to kind of make a real pain and effort and say, look, my son or daughter should not be having their education jeopardized because that student is disruptive, because that student isn't getting, the school procedures are being ignored in dealing with their behavior. Yeah, and they've got it. And if enough parents kind of take that and kind of go, oi, headmaster, this isn't right, this is not. Eventually, they can't ignore it, because sometimes these things get ignored.
Well, it's hard to ignore it when it's coming externally than it is internally, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about you, Jamie? Obviously, so much of your work is done at home. So stresses with a job or with a project, how do you not bring that home? Or do you have the luxury of being at home that you can vent about it then and there and sort of disperse it out of the system so you don't actually bring that baggage into the house? So for me, it's easy because I'm away from the house. That front door, I have to let it go before I come in. As I said before, I can't work from home. It doesn't work for me because I've got to have that. I've got to have that switch. So my stress is I can generally get rid of it. Every once in a while, I do bring it home, which sucks. It's miserable for everybody. But actually having that at home, how do you get your release of that so it doesn't affect the family? Because that's something I think I would really struggle with.
I think fortunately the kind of day-to-day stresses of the work are minimal. All much minimal, but tolerable. They don't tend to bubble up and become too much of a problem. I don't know whether that's just the way I'm used to processing them or not. I don't tend to, although I'm a CAD manager and IT manager, I'm not managing people as such. I'm managing technology or processes or things like that. So there's not a lot of high-level stress that ends up on me. That bubbles over.
Your stress is more generated by technology or software than people then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Training people or getting process in place and things like that. It's routine more than anything. So the kind of, there's no curveballs, as it were.
Okay.
My wife and I are pretty well practiced in giving each other time to vent and offload. So she does a 6 to 2 shift. So by the time she gets back, it's usually not long after my lunch break. So she gets home, I'll go and say hello, and she'll vent about her day, and I'll vent about any of my frustrations. But we've very consciously created a bit of an environment where we can do that, and we don't take it out on each other. We give each other that freedom to be able to vent about our problem.
Just get it out.
Yeah, exactly, and it's self-discipline as well, I think, to leave ego at the door. So there's, if you can vent about the situation, say objectively, but rather than, oh, so and so did this, so well, this happened. I think it's a lot of it is about the language that you use. And
it's to take the personal emotion out of it, isn't it? And more state the fact of what's caused that stress. That was
absolutely, yeah.
Well, that's something I got taught very early on in project management, because site work is very, very different. Fuck you, you're a prick, get it done, or fuck off.
Yeah.
When you move up into project management and you're judged by what you write, because the written word, sarcasm, it doesn't come over so well, or the tone can be easily misread, and somebody can royally fuck you off. My director gave me a few key phrases to put into an email. So on the surface, it looks like you're being totally polite, but you read between the lines, and somebody that knows what they're reading is would you kindly? And as stated before, I await your expedient response.
I saw a fantastic thing on Reddit the other day, talking about how people sign off their emails, and whether or not you're a regards or a kind regards or a best regards or a warm regards or cheers or any of these, and the amount of people who would say that they would sign off their emails with something like kind regards until that person is fucked up, and then it just drops down to regards, because you know that you're in the shit now.
It's subtle. I find just please kindly find, would you kindly, but that comes from years of playing BioShock.
I was going to say that's a very, very much a BioShock phrase.
But I find it works. And so I remember I sent a couple of emails off, and I was like, so forget about it. Forget you're talking to a person, you're talking to a machine. State the facts, take your emotion out of it. You can ring them up and tell them what you want to, but never in writing, son. And that's the thing. So I will sometimes vent to Anna on the phone, and I'll just tell her what has happened. Even if somebody has stabbed me in the back, I've been stabbed in the back by so-and-so because of this and because of that. Yeah. You'd think in my game that it's a bunch of men and that what you see is what you get. I find the further you move up, it's not so much like that. It's almost like being back in high school again. Certain aspects of it. And it sucks. Especially when you're all feeding out the same trough. You're all working for the same client. Why can't you work together to deliver it together instead of trying to earn points? Because you know what? The people up at the top aren't daft. They know what stupid little games you're playing. So just be honest.
Yeah,
Put your hands up,
it's
don't
all,
stuff it.
especially like if you're working on a project that's multiple trades, multiple subcontractors and things like that. There's always that kind of that race to the bottom to see who can do the most work with the least amount of effort.
Yeah,
you know, it's always a game of palming the problems off to everyone else.
There is. There's so much CYA that goes on now that almost becomes part of the project that you've got to. That you've also got to factor into it into say your enabling works phase, because everybody is scared now to put their blood to something.
Everything's litigation, isn't it? It's like you say that CYA, that covering your ass.
Yeah,
It's like you said before, don't put it in the email, because that email, that's one of my colleagues has said the same thing before, of like, write every email as if it's been read out in court back to you. If you approach them that way, you're not gonna slag someone off in the email or be sarcastic or something, because you've got to write that as if the judge is reading it back to you as a piece of evidence,
or on the back of a telephone call, as discussed earlier.
Yeah,
there's so much more of that. It's a very, very different game than what I entered 10 years ago, just as a dumb labourer,
Get the job done, go home, straight to the pub.
Yeah. So I suppose for me, my stress more is individuals, and that is very, very hard sometimes to maintain your professionalism, especially when you're face to face with them. That's why you've got to walk away. That's why, again, my front door is like, right, this ain't work. They've done nothing to you. Switch off, walk in. I'll deal with that problem tomorrow. But working from home, I still have those stresses of individuals that I know they're a dickhead and I'm talking to them on the phone. Sometimes you got to shout at somebody in a not very nice way. It's best off I don't do that at home, because that's a side of me that my family doesn't need to see.
Yeah.
That's why working at home doesn't work for me. Working remote is fine. I don't want to go into the office, because anything I do not to go into London, that's good. But working from home doesn't work for me either. So fortunately, by having an alternate space, which also doubles up as a workshop, that's how I get through it. That's how I deal with my stress, and that's how I maintain the work-rest balance.
You've got a big pair of googly eyes on a massive sander that you can shout at.
I do, and I've got the single googly eye in the toilet, which, that was a masterstroke. We can thank Gus for that, can't we?
And push comes to shove, you've got somebody, a particular person that's causing you difficulties, just invite them around to the space and feed them into the sander.
Yeah, it's just a big dumb machine. It ain't going to stop. I couldn't imagine what that would do to somebody.
Bad things.
It would certainly rough them up a bit.
There it is. 20 past 11 and Jamie's still on form.
I told you, I don't switch off, you know this.
Evidently. I'll be right back, my cup's empty.
Yeah, and it's a top monitor. I think it's the first for a live drink refresh on the show.
Yeah, we've had toilet break from one. Well, we've had one toilet break that we've been told about. I mean, we may have had more.
That's true.
To be fair, that was over 4 hours, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was close to 5.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fair dinkins. And Jess is only small, so...
You can only retain for so long.
Yeah. But Paul, I mean, if you you've talked about at some point you'd like to kind of migrate away from project management, become so your job is making. Do you think you'll find that hard to switch off? I mean, you'll still have to commute, you'll still be kind of travel home, still walking through the front door, but when it's your business,
when it's clients instead of customers, or customers instead of clients.
Well, that would be different. Mine, it might not be so much switching off, but then it would be easier to have a discussion with my wife about it, because then it directly affects both of us as opposed to what I'm doing now. So and so didn't order the correct size racking, so then security guys can't come in and the sparks can't come in afterwards. She doesn't need to know that. It's our business. But what I want to do with it, the making side, the production side of it, but run that in conjunction with Essex Makers and with introducing workshops upstairs in the maker space. The rest of the month, as I'm thinking it through, then that can actually become a maker space upstairs during the other days of the month. If I can pull myself 100% full-time away from the day job, then I've got a chance to do that. But the problem is my week is so dynamic. I can be in the shop 3 days a week, or I might not be in there for 2 weeks. So I can't commit to something like that. What I can commit to is every weekend, because 6 o'clock Friday, I'm done until 7 a.m. on Monday. It's a 5-day week. It's the way it works. But until I can find that transition, I'm stuck doing what I'm doing. If we can, like I said before, if we can get fully populated classes 3 weekends and a meet on the 4th weekend of the month. I haven't thought about those 2 joker months where you have 5 Saturdays, but that notwithstanding, they'll probably achieve around between 65 to 70% of the income that the day job gives me. But then that leaves 3.5 weeks of the month to do something else with that space. What do I feel that?
Like more resin tables.
Yeah, absolutely. And then send it to America for 15 grand, but it's only a 2 grand table. I couldn't leave it alone. I'm sorry. But he's not listening. I think there would be stress for it. It is being run like a business. The workshop does pay for itself. It's just, it sounds like I'm making an excuse, and I kind of probably am. It's not enough to supplant the day job yet, but it needs more time put into it. It's where I take the jump. Funny enough, I was talking to James about it on the Saturday at Maker Central, and he's got a very unique way of putting things. But it did make me think. In fact, I might just employ him to be my life coach. Put down the fucking fork. Yeah, sorry, James, I will. Okay, tomorrow I'll eat salad. No, it was the body of what he said, where it made perfect sense. It was a valid point. It was just the delivery and execution was a little bit more forthright than I was used to, but it came from a good place, and it's where I make the transition. And I don't want to burn any bridges at the moment. If I was to walk out tomorrow, because we're so low on management, morally that wouldn't be right. Ethically, it wouldn't be right. It might be right for me, but I don't want to burn that bridge, because apart from our ridiculous workload that we've got now, the company's been very, very good to me. I started there, how long ago? 11 years ago? No, 10 years ago. Anna was 8 months pregnant with Alfie. So I think you know, Jamie, Andy, I used to be a chef before I got in the construction game. And where I was working, it was one of the most oppressive work environments I'd ever been in. The money wasn't great. I remember sitting outside. Anna was 8 months pregnant. I told her I wasn't going in. Don't make me go in. You have to go in. I'm 8 months pregnant. For fuck's sake, what are we going to do? I'm being a child, but you can't make me do this. Don't make me do it. Fine, go get a job. And I ended up working for a recruitment agency as a labourer. I think it was for £6.50 or £7 an hour. And that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. And 10 years later, I'm a project manager responsible for I don't know, it could be up to 400 people spread across various sites, depending on the workload that we've got now. And that company is believed in me and pushed me to get there. So I'm very, very thankful for them, but I don't want to do it forever.
Well, that's what I was going to say is there's a point where you totally appreciate they're not wanting to leave them in the shit. But there's never going to be a right time, is there?
No, I think there could be a better time, and that time is fast approaching. I need to get some other things in place first. So really,
well, I mean, from their point of view, you know,
their point of view, no, there'll never be a right time for me to leave. For me to leave with my head held high, there are a few breaks coming up in autumn time where it would be mutually, well, it's never going to be beneficial for them because they want as much as they can get out of me for as much as possible. It's that old adage, you did it this time, where you pulled out all the stops, called in every favour, and you got a job over the line. We did it before, you can do it again. No, that was a one-off.
That's not
no. The creeping expectations.
Yeah. That's not how any of this works. But fine, yes, sir. I'll be good. Let's do it. For them, it's not. It wouldn't be the right time to leave. But at the moment, I'm running some schemes where none of my colleagues put their hands up to it, and I'm the only one that knows it. If I go now, if something didn't work out and I wanted to go back, it's always nice to have the door open because they have been good to me. But I mean
that kind of thing's understandable.
Seeing the owners buy another West London property on the back of what we're doing when you're responsible for £1 million projects and you're seeing that much of it. I tasted that from myself. So once I've got the shop developed where it needs to be to bring in extra revenue streams, then I have that safety net. At the moment, it is very safe because it's the same amount every month. Keeps the family happy, makes sure that everything's paid. We can run, we're all right, we're not struggling. To take that jump is a bit, but it will be soon because come the end of this year, I'm probably going to look like a 70-year-old man.
You sure?
It's the lack of hair that keeps up the youthful exuberance because I don't have any. If I had it, it would be all grey. No offense, Andy.
Preaching to the choir there.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, distinguished. I'm going for the distinguished look now. This is the when you get grey, it's distinguished.
It is distinguished. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's patchy as hell.
But I think you've got to. I mean, the point. I mean, there's a couple of points that kind of sort of stick out at me when you're talking there. I mean, the second one is the fact, you've got owners of the company who are able to buy more expensive properties. They're feeding off. But earlier you said, we're 4 project managers shorter than we were, even though we've got more work. And so there is an element, to me, I'm kind of reading that as an element of they're bleeding their staff. They're cutting costs, making more profit for themselves, but they're bleeding staff dry in that.
What I would say, Andy, is it's not just about the bleeding the staff as such. Trying to get workforce is an absolute nightmare.
That's where our biggest problem is. We're actively recruiting, but because we work, I think we're unique in our game. We don't work like any other company, and we are a rapid response company. We've got 3 distribution hubs. We can, within 24 hours, we can get any trade anywhere. We're very reactive, and that's kind of where we're unique, which is why we encounter so much resistance from other main contractors, because we undercut them. The client loves us, and these other contractors, they don't like it. They can't keep up. So we get everything centrally delivered, whether it's aluminium angle plasterboard, plywood, bespoke kiosks, all into our central distribution hubs and then straight onto site. So you don't have a guy sitting on site waiting around all day for all these different suppliers to drop everything there. That's where we're unique, and that's where we steal the march from everybody else. But it is high paced, and it's very hard to sort of jump into that boiling pot. I'm sure you're both aware of the boiling frog analogy.
Yeah.
And we've always generally promoted from within people that have shown themselves to be a very competent site manager. Generally, will be a relatively confident contracts manager. If you're a decent contracts manager, project management, you're juggling more contracts, but as a main contractor, and you're seeing it through from scope to delivery. But we we don't really have many more people that you can bring up. Because the problem is, if you bring a competent site manager up, you've got to replace that site manager. And really, that site manager is your front page on site. If you've got Dilbert running your site that can't even fucking tie his shoelaces, you're wasting all your time down there. And then your other jobs are going to shit. But the problem is, because we're running so many jobs concurrently, each of us, one Dilbert could fuck 3 jobs. But it's trying to get the people in, and generally we'll hire somebody in, they'll last 2 or 3 weeks and they're jumping out of that boiling pot. We've been sitting in that pot since it was first put on the stove, so we don't know any different. But then we are afforded the freedom to manage and maintain our own diary. We don't have to put mileage logs or daily reports in. As long as we deliver, we get left alone, and that's gold. I don't think there's any other company that would allow us to, not to get away with it, but just to be sort of as cavalier as we are with our diary. As long as we don't get any noise from the client and there's no massive showstoppers or health and safety risks, then we're kind of left alone to our own devices, and the directors are aware of that. And it's become a lot better now that we don't actually have to go into the office. Our head office is in Park Royal. It's 72 miles from door to door. If I don't leave at 5 o'clock in the morning, if I leave at 5 o'clock in the morning, I get there hour and a half. If I leave at 6 o'clock, I'm not there till 9:30, 10 o'clock. That's 8 hours you're stuck in the car. You're not productive, are you? So being able to work remotely has been a blessing, but it's also increased our workload because people don't like the way that we work. It's very, very hard to get the people. So it's not they're bleeding us dry. Obviously, they're laughing at the moment, but we've got more work coming in than you could possibly imagine. See, you've got this HFSS, high fat, salt and sugars, where they're reformatting all the supermarkets to get this unhealthy stuff away from a certain sort of sweep of the entrance. And that involves far more trades than you'd actually think, because we're not allowed to have common sense. We can't look at something and think, oh, that's bad for me, I'm not going to eat it because I'm going to get this big. So everything has to be reformatted. That's on top of everything else. And there's one client, they've got 850 supermarkets and they want this done in a 6-week period. But we're the only company that can do it, and it's going to be horrible. It's going to be awful. Because we've taken so much manufacturing in-house now as well. Jamie, you've seen the pictures of the production facility down there.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
They've just bought £1.5 million powder coating plant that they've stuck up on the mezzanine now, so producing all our own metalwork and all of our own gondola. We're literally trying to take over the world, but we haven't got the management infrastructure in to do it. And that's the stress. I can feel myself getting wound up about it now. I'm on leave, and that's what we've got. That's what we've got coming up. So
the other point I was going to sort of talk about as well is you talk about it's finding that ethically and morally right time to leave. And for teaching, that can be quite a difficult one. I mean, traditionally in teaching, you leave at certain times of year. Most teachers, when they change jobs or leave their job, leave in kind of the summer to the end of the school year. Sometimes you leave at Christmas and Easter is the other one. And I've done both those. It's always easier to start a school in September than any other time of year. And it's always easier to leave in the summer rather than other times of the year. But there's always that kind of sort of, you get that kind of sort of thinking more often than not. I mean, I taught at one school and it was just like, I couldn't get out there quick enough. I did 3 years and that was just like, I don't want to remember any of the students from there. There were some nice ones, but there were just such a huge number of not nice kids. It was just like, get out. But I can remember when I moved across the country I used to live in Plymouth, and I moved over to Kent. The school I left in Plymouth, there was a class there that I had sort of year 11, American grade 10, I think that is. So, and there were a number of kids. It was top set for the school. A number of them were going to go into the A-level class, and there were some amazing kids. Yeah, there was one lass in the class who was probably one of the top students I've ever taught, and I've taught thousands of kids, but she stood out as probably one of the most able students that I've ever had the pleasure to teach. And she, she's gone on to and she went off to, I think she went off to Oxford, and I think she's now working for a big finance company and doing very well for herself. Now, when I had there were about 3 or 4 in that class. So I can still remember the lesson where I said to them, "Can I have a word with you?" The rest of the class has gone. So can I just have a quick word? Because I wanted to tell them that I was going to be going, because I'd got this job at the other side of the country, which I left for family reasons. I wanted to move to the other side of the country. And it was just like, I want you to hear this from me before you hear it on the kind of the grapevine or anywhere else, but I'm not going to be teaching you in September for A-level. And I felt so guilty about that. And I shouldn't have done. It's just a thing. The number of times I've told other teachers, don't feel guilty about this. This is the time you're going for promotion, you're moving to changing schools for whatever reason. You can't feel guilty about those nice classes that you had, those nice kids, because at some point there's always going to be some nice kids that you want to keep teaching. There's always going to be a class that you want to see through to their GCSEs or their A levels. But there's always going to be that time. It's never. Unless your subject is being phased out, or you're retiring and you phase yourself out by kind of going part-time and reducing your hours year on year and saying, can I just teach this class? And once this class is done, I'll go. Unless you have that situation, which can happen, does happen, but it's rare. You're always going to have a class that you're kind of like, sorry, I'm not going to take you through to your exams next year.
Well, there's never 100% right time, is there?
Yeah.
No, not.
Well, it's like having a child. It's like having a baby, isn't it? There is no right time. You just do it. Yeah. It's not so much morally and ethically towards the company. Of course, I'd like to leave on good terms. But a couple of my colleagues, a couple of them, I don't care. There's a couple of them that have become good friends over the amount of time that we spent together. Yeah. I go, the amount of shite that's going to get dumped on them if I go, that ain't cool. And that's that's kind of the quandary.
And I'm sure. I mean, I've been in a position. I'm sure both of you two have been in a position where somebody else has left, and it not necessarily aren't replaced, but the crap that comes down or is discovered, perhaps because they haven't been doing their job properly.
That's the situation that we're in now. The last one that's left, so much stuff's come crawling out of the woodwork now, like. Big reputation destroying stuff with, can't really get into the details, but we're talking HSE and building control that now we're having to deal with, which is taking up an inordinate amount of time that you've got to focus somewhere else. But there's only so many hours in the day. There's a natural break towards the end of autumn once I'm done with my schemes, once this HFSS is out of the way, that during this time, I can start giving some of that knowledge and information of the refrigeration schemes to somebody else. So the transition is going to be a little bit easier. I'm still going to leave people in the shit, but I don't want to leave them in as much shit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're preparing for your departure.
Exactly. And on top of that, I've got to see if it's Essex Makers venture, what my plan is for that space is going to work. If that's viable and it's going to work, then it's going to make that decision far easier.
Yeah. I think, and that's the right thing to do. I mean, again, probably on teaching analogies. I mean, I changed schools. I taught in quite a few schools, And one of the things I always made sure that I did before I left the school was to get rid of any of the crap that was mine. Yeah. And so it would be a case of, right, okay, I know I'm leaving in 6 months' time, 3 months' time, however many weeks' time. I'm going to have to work a little bit harder for the next however much time, kind of going through those filing cabinets and getting rid of all the stuff that actually I just kind of filed but isn't really relevant. So whoever's coming in to replace me, particularly if it's a management role, is going to come in and go, this filing cabinet has only got the relevant stuff that is really needed. It hasn't got the stuff that was from 5 years ago that just got filed because Andy liked to keep stuff because he's a hoarder. And yeah, I've walked into other schools. So in my last school, when I arrived, the amount of rubbish that I inherited, I mean, there was literally sort of paperwork from 15 years previously, on the desk in the kind of my little area where I had as an office.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happened to me a few times because the people leaving didn't bother to think about how can I make that transition easier? How can I make sure that somebody else coming in is actually going to just be able to get straight in to do their job and not have to kind of go, oh, this cupboard is full. I have nowhere to put my stuff that I've brought with me because no one's thrown anything away for 20 years.
Yeah. And reputationally moving forwards, you don't want to be thought of as that guy.
Yeah.
I know.
I don't think I can avoid that anyway.
Hey?
There's no chance of avoiding that.
So there's a fun-filled sort of 4 or 5 months ahead of us still, but I have my weekends, and the workshop is a catharsis, isn't it? And I have that space to share with others. I have that space to share with others now as well.
Well, it's using your privilege for good, isn't it? You know, the stuff that you've worked for, you've worked your arse off to get to this point where you have been able to build this. So for you to then be able to use that to bring other people in to give back, I think is a wonderful thing to do. It's a really good way to develop a space that you can use, but then to open that up for others as well.
Well, what else would I do with this space? I've identified that I can actually have that space clear, so why not share it with everybody else? It wasn't handed to me on a plate. I've bust my ass for the last 10 years in the day job, from literally pushing a broom to putting buildings up, which has afforded me the income to have this great big shop. But yeah, I've worked hard for it, but now I've got the space. I can share it with others, which goes back to what I said before about Saturdays. The shop door's open. Yeah. Come on down, hang out. If you've got something massive that you need cutting up, or you want to discuss a design or something, I'll happily share my time and my knowledge with you, because Saturday's more a play day most than anything else.
Yeah, and you'll get something back from that anyway.
Well, it is about the community. It's grassroots. What we started down at Tim's, and it just grew into something awesome. And then COVID came along and kicked us squarely in the nuts. It just took all the wind out of our sails. We're just starting to gain momentum, and that was the hardest thing to swallow. If it still been sort of 5-10 crusty dudes with beards just talking about turning bowls and planing boards, it probably wouldn't have hit so hard. But we had the group was getting more and more diverse. That was coming down, and lots of people with lots of different disciplines. I've never worked with wood before. Can I come down? I'm a blacksmith. Yeah, of course you can. Come down. Doesn't matter what you do. Just come down and celebrate your creativity and just hang on out. Because I don't know about you. I'll talk about something in the shop or a new process I've learned to Anna, to my wife. And she's good. She does try her best. She really does. She gets about 5 minutes and then the eyes glaze over. And that's no detriment to my wife. She supports the hell out of me, but we don't have that She just can't do it. But to be able to hang around with people where you can actually sit and talk about the fineries of 0.5 millimeter tolerance on the sliding bed on a spindle molder for 5 hours, I'm with my people. And like I said before, the response that I've gotten and the support that I've gotten, even if somebody's just sharing a story of what we've done, that's still support and believing in what we're doing. And it's fucking blown me away. It really, really has. I'm overwhelmed. But I've had somebody offer us £2,500 to put into the pot, which
bloody hell.
Yeah, they want to remain anonymous. I was like, that's fine. They said they're not doing it for clout or for a shout. They just believe in what we're trying to achieve and they want to help. And that's huge. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, massively.
So that's going to enable us just a fucking awesome space. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm really fucking excited about it, and it's
to put it slightly.
It's given me a drive. I've always got a purpose, but this purpose it's not just for me. It's for the greater community, and it could turn into something much, much bigger without that really corporate commercial feel that Maker Central has.
Yeah, and that was something that you and I spoke about at Maker Central. That plan to run the courses and to pass your knowledge on to people, and then to get other people in to run their own courses. And
because I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that would love to share their knowledge and maybe would be a fantastic teacher, but they haven't got the space or facility to do it. Come to our shop, do a workshop, do a class, show people your craft, and get your name out there. I mean, off the back of Maker Central, I met young Tom Jones, which was quite funny. I was speaking to Jimmy. He was behind me. I didn't even know. He tapped me on the shoulder. He goes, "I'm not even going to attempt the Welsh accent." He just said, "Why didn't you say hello?" And I was like, "Oh." And he goes, "I was Tom." He goes, "Yeah, it's me. It's Tom Jones." But he's tiny. And I just looked at him and I was like, "Where's the rest of you?" Because you look at his stories. He's Welsh. He lives in the mountains. He cuts up logs. He's a lumberjack, isn't he? And you can't be a lumberjack unless you're 7 foot tall. And then we got to chatting. We've been talking for the last 3 years on Instagram. And then he's telling me, you should come down. And funnily enough, I had a job handing over in Wales, 5.5 hours drive from home, back on the 13th of last month. And I said, well, I'm in Wales on the 13th. Oh, I'll take a day off work. You can come down and play on the sawmill. Just like that. And the amount of shit that I learned from him I wanted to stay all day, but it was a 5.5 hour drive home. So I think I left about 6 o'clock. So much wood in the trunk. My front wheels were like this. It was like this. It was awesome. But just that small amount of time that I spent with him, the amount of knowledge that I got from him, that obviously when they explain it, you think, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But he was just how you could look at the outside of a tree, for example, and know what the grain, or get a very, very good idea of what the grain's going to look like. And also where a tree grows, what the grain's going to look like, and to choose where to cut a tree down, so you know what you're going to get from the inside of the tree once you slab up and dry it. It was a tiny bit of the information that I learned from him. And he's got a big space up there. He had the opportunity to show that to me. What if there was a great big space where people, all their different skill levels and whatever they work with, they can share what they do to a great audience and demonstrate it and earn themselves some money from it as well, doing what they love. That's what the space is for. I mean, ultimately, I hold the keys to the front door, but that space, that little sort of 25% of the shop, that's for the community. And it's really fucking exciting time. Really, really, really fucking exciting. To recapture that magic. When we did the small meets down at Tim's, we had some people come down from Northampton. We had a couple of Turners come down the night before from Scarborough to come all the way down to Essex just to hang out for 4 hours down at our mini maker meets. That right there, there's nothing else out there. There's some maker spaces around, which I think are great, but not so much meeting spaces for meats. It's gonna be wicked. It's gonna be wicked. It's gonna be so good.
Absolutely, Matt.
And the fact that it's a space that can be worked in, because I've been looking since Maker Central. I've been looking kind of what could be sorted out in Kent to sort out some sort of meeting place. And I've been kind of sort of scouring kind of village halls and scout halls and the like, kind of trying to find places that maybe are available, perhaps actually for something that's maybe for a weekend, so that people can travel and kind of something can happen. And it's so tricky to find somewhere. There's either you could have it for Saturday afternoon, but you can't have it for Saturday morning or Sunday because there's a sports group on the Saturday morning and there's a church on the Sunday that have it. So you can't have a full weekend, even if you look 18 months ahead on their calendar. Or it's stupidly, down in the southeast, some places are just stupidly priced. Or there's no parking.
Exactly.
You're parking for 5 vehicles.
Plus you've got to set everything up and then put it all out. The space that we've got is relatively purpose-built. It's on a farm.
And finding somewhere where you can kind of go, right, okay, well, if we could get somebody to bring a small lathe, but can't do that in a majority of village halls. They're not, if they found out that you were turning, there's wood chips going everywhere, they'd kind of go dilali. I mean, the fact that the dust might set off the sensors and the smoke alarm system or whatever, it's like, okay, so we do that outside, but if we do that outside, that's car parking space taken up. And trying to find somewhere is that's a reasonable cost, that's got good parking, has got facility to maybe kind of do food or at least tea. It's just so difficult.
Well, that's what we've got there. We've got a kitchen, we've got a toilet within the shop, we've got the space upstairs, we've got parking, and we want as much variety as possible because I'm sure somebody out there listening is itching to demonstrate what they do, would want to do a workshop, but they can't because they don't have the space or to hire a hall and get all their insurances in place and get everything packed tested. It's going to cost them a fortune. It's not going to be financially viable for them. We will have that space for people to do that. We've got 3 weekends a month to fill up. So there's some value. There's a lot of mileage there.
Definitely
for people. And we're called Essex Makers, but that doesn't preclude anyone from anywhere else being part of our community. It's just like I said before, that's where we are, and that's where we thought it up, and it fit in with it rolls off the tongue quite nicely. Essex Makers, I like it, and the logo that Raz designed for us is great. A hand holding a wrench, showing that we're making. It's very, I don't know, I quite like it, quite Art Deco-y looking.
Definitely.
He does have a bit of flair, does old Raz. That's
He's good at what he does.
People are probably sick of me gesticulating and getting overexcited, but I cannot stress how excited I am about this. It's something I've had in my head since we first got the shop. Then I went through a little bit of something because not seeing people during COVID, and I started thinking the worst of people, which was something that I had to deal with, and I've dealt with it. And like I said, you got to trust people because most people are inherently good, and generally the hive mind can sniff out a dickhead, can't they?
And I think with the way what you're looking to create and the fact that you will have a core of people. I mean, the guys who you've had.
Well, I've already got a core of people, the Essex Makers army that will come and help us build. Came and help us build the place. And the beautiful thing of that is, I'm not disparaging against anybody. You can tell who's had sort of like contracting experience and who hasn't. When we first built the shop, we were framing onto blockwork walls, and the guys were asking, "So, do we drill through the wood, then put a dot on the wall, and then move it away?" And I said, "They just drill through it, take your raw plug, and smack it in with a hammer." Oh, it's a brilliant idea. And I just thought, I take that for granted because that's what I do. But everybody got stuck in. It was that is It's so cool. It's so cool. They want to help. They want to get stuck in. They want to learn new things. And seeing the smile on somebody's face when you explain something to them, to you, that you take for granted, that you think is dead simple, but they've gone away learning something. You're like, that's cool. That's cool.
Absolutely. I think that's sort of something that's like contractor skills. I think is a really interesting one in particular, because it's things that are it's time efficiencies. It's doing something to a price, or to you know yourself that the site lads are on a price, so it's in their best interests to find the most efficient way of doing something, so they can get as much done over that course of that day and take home, take home the bread.
That's how you make money instead of just earning a wage.
Exactly, yeah. So to get guys who've perhaps looked at something from a maker perspective, here's how you get this piece of wood as lined up as perfectly possible with these holes drilled, and to get that batten on that blockwork wall, as pristine and perfectly aligned as the one next to it, it's great. But if you're doing 10 minutes each as opposed to 40 seconds each, if you're just washing them straight in, it's
stick your laser up, raw it through, get it up, because every layer covers the next layer.
Exactly. It's those kind of tips, I think, that are also going to be valuable to teach.
It was interesting because what we do commercially, every wall we build, we always put plywood inside it before we dry line it, because then you're going to get a fix in it, and you're not. How many different plasterboard fixings have you tried using at home to fit inside a cavity wall? It drives you mad. You got plywood in there, you can put holes anywhere, fill it and repaint it, and it's like it was never there.
Patricin is absolutely necessary.
What's that?
Patricin is absolutely necessary, and it's one of those things that everyone cuts the corner on it. They'll we're not going to do that.
I don't even bother with Patricin. The whole fucking wall's a Patris. But it was interesting.
Well, exactly, yeah.
The guys were saying, well, look, there's a 10 mil gap at the bottom. I said, that actually doesn't matter, because guess what? The plasterboard's going over the top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why aren't you decorating all the way down to the floor? Because the skirting's going over the top of that. Really? I said, exactly. The last layer is the one that needs to be pristine, because you're just covering, you're saving time. If you wanted to tape everything perfectly and paint this line and do this and cut that and get perfectly around that pipe, you'd never get it done. Each layer, it covers the next layer. That's why on site, your decorators and your mastic men, they're the ones that you buy the coffees and the beers for, because they're the ones that make your work look good. Top tip.
Absolutely.
But little things like that, just seeing people pick it up, it's just, you take it for granted, but somebody doesn't know that. And James, for example, who's a fucking clever bastard, said to me the other day, he's doing some remodeling at home, he goes, well, remember what you said about when you're building the walls up there, and I just stuck OSB in on my walls before the plasterboard on. It's genius. I was like, yeah, that's just kind of what we do. But for somebody that I hold in high regard like that to tell me that, so you pick something up and you say thank you. It's little things like that. So from the contractor side, it was very interesting to see who had that sort of learning and who didn't. But whoever didn't took on board what the more experienced lads are doing. And you kind of just stand back and just watch it happen. You're like, yeah, this is great. Okay, I'm going to get stuck in now, but just. You're not expecting people to do the work for you, but just watching how that skill set and all that knowledge evolves and how it gets shared. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's not like it was sort of 30 years ago where old boy wouldn't tell you the right way to hang a door. We just use lasers now. You don't even use the level to hang a door anymore, because it's it's that quick and simple. So the old ways, people say old ways are the best ways. Not always. No. You find a better way to do it. I'm going to do it that way. It's going to be quicker and more repeatable and a little bit more efficient.
Yeah, the old way of ripping a board down, before table saws and circular saws and things were invented, Well, it's all efficiency gains, isn't it?
That's where plunge saws were a game changer. How Simple as that. Right, there's my mark. My rail's on. Taking my saw down, and it's cut. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But you still see these people that won't spend £5 on a new splinter guard. Oh, my splinter guard's off. You just need to move it 2 mils shy of the mark, mate. You'll be fine. So, think about what you just said. Do you know what you just said to me? You've taken all the efficiency out of that saw because now you're moving it. The whole point, throw it down, cut it, and you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Just because that's the way it's always been done, why is that the way it has to be done now? Because that's the way that you would.
That's a phrase. That's a phrase that's wound me up so many times.
As ever.
Yeah. I mean, it's just well,
that's the way. Yeah, but why? Well, it's always been done that way.
Yeah,
but why? We sound like one of my kids. Yeah, good for you. Why are we doing it that way?
Listen to them.
Surely it'd be easy to do it this way. I've been doing this. Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I know. But that's why I'm a site manager and you're a chippy. So why are you doing it this way? It drives me. It used to drive me batshit, but now it drives me angry on a different level because I have to tell some of my site managers to be telling these people that. Because you know what the hardest transition for me was, moving from site into project management, because I'm now that guy that I used to cuss. I've become that guy. Was just stepping away from it and letting it happen, because it's like, fuck, give me that. I'll show you how to do it. I shouldn't be doing that. I'm the shirt and tie guy.
Yep.
Don't like wearing a shirt and tie. I will wear it under duress and with disdain, but it's part of the job. It's just, it's my costume that I wear to work. It's my work uniform as opposed to traditional work uniform.
But why? Why is a tie? Why does a tie make anyone a better position? I hate ties, by the way.
Because it's always been that way. So that's where it's always been done.
Exactly. It's an 18th century fop that we tie a noose around our neck, and that makes us somebody more stand out right as a man.
And it's only to cover your buttons or catch the dribble from your mouth.
Yeah, that too.
I had to wear one for every single working day for. Not a fan of ties.
On that note, before we get into another couple of hours of ranting about site efficiencies and
I'm done. I'm done. I could feel the blood pressure rising. It's like, fuck's sake, Paul, you're on leave. You're not supposed to talk about that. Because the conversation started off really, really nice about people sharing knowledge and learning this, and it turned into something else. I'm done. It's getting cold up here on my soapbox, guys. I'm going to settle down.
Well, getting back to the wonderful thing of people who are wanting to help and support, for anyone who's been listening and who's excited, obviously they're not going to be quite as excited as you are, but for anyone who wants to help and support the sort of Essex Makers thing, how would they do so, Paul?
They can get in contact either through me directly at Cunningham's Custom Creations or through our Essex Makers official page. There is a PayPal donation link in both of the bios. You don't have to support financially. You can just share our stories or share our posts of what we're doing, or if you're close by and you want to get stuck in, you can always come down and give us a hand as well. And come to the meets. Anybody that still donates, we have a few little things that we give away as a thank you. Generally, the main thing is sort of a plaque of our logo in a prime finish for you to kind of put your own spin on it. But yeah, whatever people can do. If you believe in what we're doing and you want to see us succeed and be a part of it, just get in contact with us and we'll steer you in the right direction. I'm really looking forward to it. Or come down to one of our meets. It's worth a road trip down to Essex, I'm sure. Especially when there's barbecue involved. And I'm a fucking fantastic chef because I used to do it for a living. It's still making though, isn't it? It's just a slightly different
totally. Absolutely.
Materials.
Yeah.
Yep.
Still creating.
That's my argument whenever someone says they're not a maker. It's like, if you've chosen the ingredients and put them into a sandwich, you're a maker.
Yes.
If you're in a Subway and choose the ingredients, somebody else puts it into the sandwich, you're a maker.
Collaborative.
Creative director. And don't skimp on the Southwest sauce. Gentlemen, I'm fading away.
You've got to get up early, and I know that.
I've got to get up early. I've told myself I'm going to be in the shop for 7:30 in the morning, so that'll give me 6 hours sleep. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it hasn't felt like 2.5 hours. It's felt like 10 minutes.
Chat with some mates.
A quick chat with some mates that have known each other for decades. It's it's been an absolute pleasure, and God pray that you might have me back one day. Yeah. And we would like to see both of you in January. Not January. Fuck January. What am I saying? See, I told you, I'm tired.
You've gone past the point now.
In July, because you can't make June, you can't make August. So
we'll see what we can do.
We'd love to see both of you down in July. I haven't formally announced any dates yet. I just don't want to count my chickens before they're hatched, but just want to get the space complete, and then we will make an official announcement. And then we're looking at potentially a podcast, like I said before, but we'll have merch in place for the first meet. We're going to be bringing 3 Easy Pieces Challenge back, and going on in the future, we're looking at getting ourselves a website set up. So if there's any clever people out there that could help us with that, because I'm technologically retarded. Oh, I don't know if I can say that. I'm not as good with technology as some others may be. Please get in touch.
It's a better way.
See if we can work something out, because I don't really know the first thing that I'm doing when it comes to that.
You put your focuses elsewhere.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
You put your focuses elsewhere.
Yeah. I shouldn't have said retarded, should I? Fuck, I said it again.
It's
a legitimate word.
Yes,
just misappropriated in the one context.
It depends on the situation it's applied to. If you're using it to describe people, and that's self-defacing is one thing.
Well, I'm describing myself, so I guess
it's when it's applied to other people that's when it becomes an issue, particularly in kind of educational terms.
Absolutely,
used to be quite common. Should we skip attention grabbers, Jamie? Yeah, we'll skip attention.
Well, I mean, I've gone over mine. I've been doing Raspberry Pi stuff, and
I've been doing the garden. The only way I would say, Dave Bauer, previous guest, started a podcast, had Andy Berkey on. It's called Making Problems to Solve, and it's the first podcast in a long time that I've listened to at just 1.2 times speed, because it was absolutely spot on. I even rewound a couple of times because something had caught my attention elsewhere, and I kind of I missed something, and I actually went back and listened to. So definitely want to listen to and watch. I'll put a link in the show notes for that.
Well, Andy Berkey is a good one to give a nudge to, actually. I mean, just because he's wonderful and lovely anyway, but because he's reached his 20th birthday. So
yes,
he needs some hugs, and he might start acting a third of his age soon. Maybe.
Yeah, no. Can't see that happening. On that note,
Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure having me. It's been brilliant. It's been brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Like I said, it just felt like a chat with old friends. Really.
That's exactly what it is.
Yep.
We shall look forward to next
time. We'll say goodbye to the audience that's still left, and we'll see you next week.
You get some sleep.
Yeah. So
good night.
Bye for now.